Good evening, everybody. Welcome to round 9 of this year's ASR Supercars Championship, and it's now at a very interesting point of the season. 3 rounds to go in this year's championship. 3 sprint races tonight with the hard tyre bolted on, so that will be an interesting case in its own right. And the most important piece, the drop round is in effect now. So they always say bad things come in threes, and well, conclusions are it's coming to a close, this championship. There's 3 races tonight, and then the third bad thing was, well, a whole bunch of guys lost a bunch of points. Benjamin Roddy Rhodes coming out of the last round. Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. It's good to be back again. It's only been, well, actually, it's been less time than we planned on it being with the reshuffle of the Enduro Cup calendar, but yeah, it's good to be back. And no, you're right. Sandown was a little bit messy. A few drivers probably knew coming out of the night that they were going to be stung a little bit. Some drivers maybe wasn't so obvious to them what they'd done wrong. But at the end of the day, I think probably one of the bigger penalties we've handed out since Gold Coast, actually, to some of the drivers involved at least. And yeah, it's a scrappy race, but that has been. We're focusing now on what is, and what is 3 races on the hard tyre at Sydney Motorsport Park.
Yeah, absolutely, and you're right. There was a fairly long list of penalties. Not that we wanted to be handing those things out, but it was a little bit of a messy affair. There was a couple of naughty DQs and things in there as well for people doing the wrong thing that they know they shouldn't have been doing. And on top of that, there was the drop round that made things a little bit worse for some people because it has leveled the playing field a little bit. There have been some drivers, we'll get into the point standings very, very shortly, but there have been some drivers that did lose, of course, their worst round in terms of the points that they had earned over the opening 8 rounds of the season. There were, of course, some drivers that have dropped 0 points, of course, because they missed a round, so therefore they dropped 0 points off their thing, and that's perfectly fine because technically that counts as their worst round. They scored nothing even though they weren't there. That's the way that this thing actually works. So it's probably a pretty prudent point that we actually bring up the drivers' standings right now to have a look at this. And as you can see there, big red text on the left-hand side, drop round in effect. The first time we've had it on the point standings all season long. And it did, Rhodey, narrow down the points advantage of Kurt Stenberg at the top of the standings. Not by much, but he did drop more points for his worst round compared to Will Devenish. But it has tightened up a number of other battles in the field. Look at the battle for 3rd, 4th and 5th overall. 65 points between Redmond, Foley and Ross. And then Luke Rosella, even though he's missed a couple of rounds, so he's dropped more than just his 0-point worst round, he's still within realistic earshot of a good finish in this year's championship.
Yeah, it's interesting how many drivers that actually didn't end up dropping points from the drop round because everybody, or a good majority of the top 10, and maybe mostly everybody outside of it, had not run around. I think the lowest placed driver to have dropped points was Dane Liccardo. So the lowest placed driver to have run every single round, or at least to have scored points in every single round. But no, it's Kurt lost something like 50 points more than Will did, so that sort of brought that gap up a little bit. The big crucial drop actually in the end from that mid-pack was Brennan Ross. He was pretty comfortably at the head of it coming into the drop. But with Tim Redmond, Brenton Foley, Luke Rosella, and Lewis Wedding all picking up or all having a missed round somewhere in there, it moved them all back up relative to him. So you're right, amongst other things, it brings Luke into the picture of definitely probably still in sort of a podium for the season. If not, I don't know, math-wise, he's probably still technically within range. It just needs a lot of things to go his way, and he needs to make every race from here on out. But no, it has sort of done its end effect. It's given people that had to take a round out at certain points. I know Foley's missed around so far this year. Lewis Wedding, probably the drop round would have helped him had it only been Sandown that he missed out on. But unfortunately, effectively a DNS with the lap 1 incident with him and Nathan Higginson at Townsville. But no, it's played into its effect. It's given those guys who've had to take a round out somewhere a chance to still compete with others in the championship, and from here on, all points matter. There's no getting out, getting away from a bad round. So a bad round does matter at this point. So we're kind of almost into the playoffs, or not the playoff. We're kind of almost like the chase of Supercars, except everybody's still in contention. We're not firing it down to the top 16.
No, you're definitely right. And as they used to say I think it was, what was the name of the TV show in America? Whose Line Is It Anyway? You award them points, but the points don't matter. But no, this is far from the case.
Yes.
They've taken the pain now. So it was over the first 8 rounds. That's where your worst round came into effect. It's now been taken off the board, and it's leveled the playing field somewhat. So there's, as you said, Lewis Wedding, unfortunately for him, had the lap 1 DNF at Townsville, and then of course missed Sandown with his pedal dramas. So therefore he's actually dropped 2 rounds of 0 points. So he would be a little bit further up the order. I was probably expecting, if that was the case, he'd be up a little bit closer to Luke Rosella. Probably not on Rosella's stand of 1,479 points, but he'd probably be in the high 1,300 to low 1,400 point standing, and would be a little bit further away from Daniel Cox than he is right now. As we flip over the page and we have a look at the Teams Championship, the drop round effect has a massive impact on the Teams Championship too. Have a look at this at the top of the standings, just 3 points in it between the CRE Race Engineering duo of Termo and Will Devenish, and the 2 6-pixel Sim Sports cars of Brendan Ross and Lewis Wedding behind. That is a massive game on for the last 3 rounds too, Rhodey. All on the line in the teams.
Yeah, there's the teams sort of almost not been quite as tight, or I rephrase that, the avenue of where it is tight has sort of changed from the last couple of seasons, where we used to have a large number of teams fighting at the top end of the titles. Now we just got 2, and it does not diminish the fight. At this point, you're right, 3 points the difference. And this is from, Will Devenish has won races this year. Brendan Ross has won a race this year. Lewis Wedding has been at the pointy end. Termo maybe not quite as quick as the 2 pixel guys, but Will's definitely helping out there, and Termo's not slow. He just maybe hasn't quite had the year he'd like to have, and that's culminated in the title fight we're seeing in the teams. But then we go back a little bit. KSS Team Tanifer pretty comfortably in 3rd at this point. Probably not going to lose that unless at this point I think just Timmy doesn't show up. Their only real challenges from CRE Motorsport behind, which is Cam Rutledge, Steve Burko, and all the drivers that are filled in for Steve Burko across the season. But then you go back sort of back a little further back. I'm looking now down towards sort of the back end of the top 10 of the teams. And you've got Anson Motorsport, which is just Coxey. You've got KSS Automech, Cheese and Higginson. You've got the 2 AAR drivers of Hans Brunswick and Corey McFarlane. You've got Luke McHugh Racing, which is actually going to get a healthy haul of points tonight. They've got 2 cars again. So Noah Tara jumped in Ben Hall's car at Sandown. And the other B Hall, Bailey Hall, is going to be in Ben's car tonight. So they're going to rocket up 10 points a little bit. And the other one, which is going to fall back a little bit, is the single car Warwick Racing team. But they're all packed in within about 100 points of each other over, I think, 5 spots in the team's roster. But there's still some good fights in the teams going on as well.
Yeah, there still is. And as you said, a couple of those guys are just off the point standings there, or the top 10 point standings on your graphics. So it has shaken it up. The drop round has had an impact on both the teams and the drivers' championships. And, well, tonight we go racing at SMP. This place is, we've been here many, many times throughout the course of the 5 years of ASR, and of course it's a mainstay in the Supercars Championship. There's the Sydney Metro. It's out to the western suburbs, just past the Quarry Precinct. You're in the area of Rudy Hill, Greystanes, Pemulwuy, all sorts of things. There's, a lot of the western suburbs right around this racetrack, Huntingwood and a whole bunch of other suburbs, and right smack in the middle you've got Eastern Creek, this 11-turn venue. The Gardner layout, as it's affectionately known, of course there's about 3 or 4 different layouts for this circuit. This is the only one that sees any meaningful supercars action. in the real world and, of course, in the sim racing world. I don't think there's been one or two people that have run the Druid layout before, which leaves the circuit at turn 4 to the left and then comes back on at the hairpin at turn 8. It's pretty much almost like a little straight that goes between those two parts of the track. And there's your qualifying and track records on the side there. And unfortunately, we won't be seeing any of those broken tonight, Rhodey, because we are, of course, as we said, on the hard tyre.
Yeah, I'd be very, very amazed if any of those were anywhere near touched. Well, we have raced this track. I think every year that we've done Supercars. So it's not like there's a case of like a 2018 record that was set by somebody who wasn't slow, but maybe the cars weren't quite there and the experience wasn't quite there. That would still be an avenue of breaking. I think the record, you did mention it, but I was checking records. Yeah, like the record is not 2020. So it's not one that's an avenue of being touched, but there's still going to be some good pace out there tonight. I think I was looking at earlier. Luke Rosella's got into the 28th. Actually, 2 hours actually in the 28th now. So not slow, but definitely not a record-setting pace that we're used to seeing.
No, definitely not. And the comparison there, you saw the race lap records were in the 1 minute 26.6 and 26.7 bracket. Fastest times we've been seeing through practice so far and across the weekend are in the low or mid to high or 28. So Rosella 28.3, Devonish 28.6, Stenberg 28.8. They are the 3 drivers that have, across the course of the week's worth of practice, have gone under the 1 minute 29 barrier. So you look at it, it's roughly about 1.5 to 1 3/4 seconds difference between the hard tyre and the soft tyre in all forms of conditions. Of course, you can push the soft tyre quite substantially, but the sprint race, you really couldn't make the soft tyre, well, you had to try and find a way to make the soft tyre last. If it was a soft tyre race, there'd be a few people, I think, that'd be getting a little bit worried, especially around the right side tyres here. That's the working side of the car. Majority of the turns here going to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. 5 out of the 11 turns go that way, but of course they're all long loaded corners, Rhodey. That's the problem. Turn 1, high speed, very high loading. Medium speed corners, turns 5 and 6 and 7, they're all sort of medium speed. The hairpin at turn 2 goes on for a while. You've got to wait patiently on the throttle, and then that sort of double apex last sort of couple of corners. Actually, it's 2 corners, turns 10 and 11. Sorry. They, again, you've got to be really patient on the throttle, but you've really got to sort of wrench the wheel at a couple of spots here and really work that right side tyre. And then you've got to sort of play that really patient game to get back on the throttle at the right time. Because if you put it down too early, you're going to loop the car or you're going to have the tail wagging the dog, basically.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether there was some criteria they're trying to hit when they designed SMP, but every corner has long loading to it. There's no quick corners. Even as you mentioned, the last sector, even then it's still some decent loading on the tires because it's a short little flick to the right. But relatively, if it flicks to the right into a chicane, that's still a relatively long, like sort of 23 degree corner at relatively high speeds. Then the left of the chicane, you think, oh, it's a short little corner, but really that's just the first apex of a double apex corner that encapsulates the entire sort of last 2 corners. And yeah, there's no real chance. There's no light loading on the tires at any point. It's you lean on the tires and you're on those tires for a good few seconds. So it's fairly even wear, but yeah, it is a preference towards during the right hand tires. Turn 1, turn 2 in quick succession. Turn 3 and 4 sort of give it a bit of the break, but then you start to have an issue with your left front giving up, and then yeah, it's just not a track that likes tires.
No, definitely not. And they're all going to be about how you get these tyres to behave the way you want them to behave in this session, because it's only 10 minutes. So a few drivers, I think, will look to at least get a banker lap in the early going in the first 5 minutes of the session. Get out, maybe get 2 laps in, come back in, strap on another set of boots, and then go for another 2-lap run. So that's what the word on the wire is. as we get underway. Daniel Cox leads them out of pit lane. The green light is on, and behind them, the field pretty much continues to stream on out. You've got Higginson leaving the lane behind Redmond, and you've got Steve Burko and NZ Snipes in the lane now. There comes Brent Foley out of the garage. So he's going to be the last man to go to the track. There's Termo, he's at the back too, and Will Devenish. So they've actually left it quite a little bit late, and along with Brendan Ross too. So there were a few drivers that, I wouldn't say they were a bit tardy to get out of the lane. They were just sort of spending some time. There you actually see, look at them all, they're still coming out. So both the Pixel Sim Sports cars, then Steve Warwick, and there'll be one car missing from this qualifying session tonight. That's Lockie Lock. You can see his name's up there for the Luke McHugh Racing, powered by CRE. He's unfortunately one of the drivers that has a little bit of punishment to unfortunately serve. So he is going to be starting off the rear of the grid. Actually, might not be a bit of a bad ploy at a track like this, Rody, to start off the rear of the grid, because there can be a little bit of chaos through the opening couple of corners on lap 1.
Yeah, it's a wide track, but a wide track hides a very thin racing line, and especially with cold tyres, yeah, you know, people are going to get pretty ambitious in the first couple of corners, but yeah, we'll see that. But for now, he is probably, you're right, he is in a good spot, all things considered, to be starting off the back. He's got, and all we can do from there is go up as well, so he can't do any worse than where he starts, which is a nice sort of self-motivational tool that to at least finish where you start in a race.
That's right. Let's go on board here with our 2021 Series champion in Luke Rosella. He's gone through turn 1, highest speed part of the circuit, now down to turn number 2, and through he goes. That's a long sort of steady state hairpin. He's got to wait until you can get back on the throttle and then get going again, which he does a fairly good job of doing. Now through the infield part of the circuit up to turn 4, and now down to turn 5. There he's on the bottom right hand corner as well from the outside cam. Use all the concrete apron up as far as you can get away with the track limits. That's what a lot of people are going to have to be wary of tonight, is where can you actually make all your pace. So now under the bridge into turn 7, and now down to the final slowest part of the course, which is the hairpin at turn 8. Has a little bit of camber in it, so you can push the left side tyres just a little bit. Again, use the concrete apron on the outside, maximise your exit. This little flick to the right that you were talking about, Rody, up turn 9. Use the curb, turn 10 into here. Again, out as far as you dare. Running solo, not a problem. Very tidy lap through the last corner. Again, use the runoff as much as you can. All permissible, all legal, and to the line to set the opening benchmark. This will be in the low 28s, I say. Yeah, 28.1, fastest time we've seen across the weekend or the week so far.
I will say, I reckon he's going to go quicker, because I was watching the run through turn 7, which I think is Corporate Hill, and it was not one to turn at all. We had the thing ploughing hard. He was having to get out of the throttle and back in the throttle, just trying to get some momentum through the rear of the car without causing understeer. If he can get the understeer tame through there, he's probably going to knock another 10th or 2 off. I reckon we might even see him get towards the 27s, potentially.
27 to be a hell of an effort too. So Redmond's now jumped up into P2 ahead of Foley, Stenberg, Dane Liccardo, and there's a bunch of other drivers that we're waiting to see laps from. Higginson's left his charge a little bit late. Actually, I think he's actually left the lane a little bit later. So he's on a bit of a different strategy or salvo compared to everybody else. He won't probably get the full allocation of laps in. Brenton Foley, what's he up to at the moment? The former champion, 2019 Series champion, is matched his sector pretty well in Sector 1 on this second flying lap for him. Now down to turn 6, and as you said, Corporate Hill, the next turn up under this bridge that goes up the hill. That's why they call it Corporate Hill, because there is a hill. And then a turn in there for Foley looked a little bit nicer, but as you said before, Rosella sort of ploughed a little bit through that corner. The second sector mark comes up on the other side of this hairpin, pretty much as you leave the concrete. Right there. And he's actually found 4/10 Foley, so this will move him up the order. Stenberg's now moved ahead of Foley into a provisional P3. If Foley can keep this going, that will move him back up to P3, because Redmond's just improved. He's now found another 10th as well. Still almost a full half a second away from Luke Rosella. And can the PBF stalwart shave some more time off the clock. He lost it. He shaved a little bit more. He shaved a fine margin, and he lost a lot.
It'll be all probably in that last corner. It's a tricky corner with a multi-aspect to it, multi-complex corner. And just trying to get on the throttle as soon as possible. It's like 2 or 3 runs and get out of the last corner, but there is the one that is the correct one for pace, and you just have to get there. I was talking with Foley earlier. Actually, it's a hard one for Foley tonight, from the aspect that SMP is one of his favourite tracks. So he's done plenty of laps around here in the years he's been racing in the ASR Supercars. But it's the first time he's done it on a hard tyre, and the hard tyre feels to him like a completely different car compared to the soft tyre around here. So he's basically having to relearn SMP again from scratch. So he seems to, in practice, have got this up to the point where he wants it to be at, and we saw he's running some pretty good pace. Definitely, if he can get back into that groove again, he's definitely, in for a want to start. He's definitely going to start on the front 2 rows at this point, but on to start a little higher than that. But no, pretty good running so far for Foley.
Absolutely, and just keeping an eye on things at the moment. Steve Burko's found a little bit more time, but he's currently P10. Needs to find a bit more time than that to vault himself any real substantial distance up the order. He's getting a little bit of a tow here from the cross-team car in Turmo. Not sure if it's going to make any shred of a difference here. No, it didn't make too much of a difference at all, unfortunately for him. His stablemate, though, is having a bit of a drama. He's down in P9 here, Will Devonish, and well off what his best lap would have been. 29.5 for him on his opening set of laps. His best time across the weekend so far has been a 28.6, so that would be enough to vault him up to sort of 2nd or 3rd place if he could replicate that, but that's miles off.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's just come out for a second run here or whether he put a track on the last lap through. But yeah, it's normally, Will has popped in this low, I think, before in an initial run, but not normally this lane of qualifying session is Will still this far down in the top 10. So he's going to be starting a lap again in the next 15 seconds or so. He's going to get maybe another 2 runs at this.
He'll get 2.
It depends on how the car's set up as to... I've seen Sarah setups before on tyres, and if you build a car to 2 tyres, it will 2 tyres. So I'm not sure whether they're going for that approach, at least for qualifying. But I imagine with a hard tyre, probably going to get 2 laps more as long as he's got the fuel for it. So we should see in the next minute or so Will Devonish fall from a few spots.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on him and see how he goes at this one. We're actually keeping an eye also on this man as well, Dane Liccardo. So 6th position for him at the moment. Not that far behind Brendan Ross and Brent Foley, just 2/10 behind. And this man debuted here 2 years ago. He was in the Volvo. Actually, copped his first penalty, and he hasn't forgotten it ever since at this particular track. And there's the 2/10 he needs. Have a look at that. So right on cue, he is responding and potentially going to move up to a provisional 2nd row here, although he's a little bit wide, but that actually gives him a fairly late apex for the last turn, so he could get on the power a little bit early. And is that going to give him a credit when it gets to the line? He will get 1 more lap. Dare say he won't get another one because he probably won't be fueled for it. And he does move up to the provisional 2nd row of the grid, so that's a very tidy lap.
Yeah, so he's having some really good pace as well, Dane. He's sort of been he's probably coming into a second wind for this season. He's been facing some challenges this year, just with some other drivers on track. But qualifying obviously is all about you and the clock, which has helped him out as well in qualifying this year. But yeah, I think he's going to have a good night tonight.
There's your 27, Rody. There's your 27.
Yep, there it is.
Yeah, so Rosella's just landed his 27, the one you're referring to, so he won't be touched from there. As Devonish got a response here, he goes now up to the provisional 2nd row of the grid, so he finds some time. He's still nearly 1.2 seconds behind, so that's a pretty substantial margin. And in fact, 3/10 of a second behind the man we were just watching in Tim Redmond. So Redmond's going to get another lap, and with Devonish going that wide at the 2nd corner, I'll be interested to see whether or not he's actually improving at this sector marker. And the answer is he did. Okay, so he found another 2/10. I was a bit worried for a minute because he was so wide that wasn't actually going to net him an advantage in time.
No, it's... the interesting bit, I was just looking at that actually, is I thought he would have a 28 Lucas. I didn't think he'd be that far ahead though. He's drives around have improved a little bit, but he's still the best part of, he's over 6/10 ahead of Kurt Stenberg. And this being on a track that Luke doesn't like, so he's he must really be funneling that anger and that dislike into some positive action, because that's a really bloody quick lap on these tyres.
It is, and Dane Liccardo just finished one and bailed, and also gave Brendan Ross a bit of a tow as well. So Rossi in the back of shot, we're just watching Kurt Stenberg. He's still got one more lap left in him, and I'm keeping an eye on everybody coming to the line now, because it is time just to see what everybody else can do. Here's one of the wild cards. Zach Brown, good time from him. 30.8 is not too shabby. That's sort of around the development series pace. So this will be a good sort of a learning curve for him this round to see where everything is at. And he pulls the pin on that one. Nathan Higginson coming around the final corner and to set hopefully his best lap. Devonish has bailed, so fourth is the best that he's going to do. Higginson improves to 12th, so that's not a bad effort for him as well. Good start for him. Termo next man to the line. Has he got a response? No, he does not. So he stays put. Lewis Wedding, can he vault up the order from 10th place? It doesn't look like he's going to mount a chance. He does. He gets some time late, goes to P7. And that was all the time for that. Looks like it came in the last sector, because it was definitely wasn't lighting up the timing screens. I tell you what, he was. It looked like it was just sort of like dull green sectors. There wasn't really anything substantial being lit up on the timing boards, and pulled that one. So good result for there.
I was just noticed Rossi not improving, so Lewis Wedding is the best qualifier of the two Pixel cars, but Steve Warwick at the end there also up to 11th. So he's just pipped Cam Rutledge and Nathan Higginson.
And that's good effort as well. Again, another one of the drivers that does double duty in the series for the Super 2 and in the Supercars. And that's a pretty smart time, because actually that's quicker than what he actually achieved in Dev Series. Mind you, the Dev Series does have a fixed setup. And actually, if we have a look at the, I want to look at the timing screens actually, just to see where he was for the round.
One thing I have to notice as well, actually, just as a fun fact, the gap between Bailey Hall and his indirect teammate in Steve Burko is one of those nice small ones. He's 0.001 ahead of Steve Burko in qualifying. So 129.824 plays a 129.825 between the two CRE affiliated Mustangs.
Nothing in it. Absolutely
nothing in it at all.
Yeah, there it is on the left-hand side of your screen there. So they're about 2 seconds in arrears of Rosella, and he was untouchable in that session. And as we've come to know over the last couple of seasons, qualifying is one of his strengths. He always seems to pull out the really good laps when he needs to. You see a couple of drivers just returning to the lane now. Lewis Wedding, I think the last one to come back into the lane is going to be NZ Snipes. So top three: Rosella, Stenberg and Redmond, and then Devonish in fourth. So a pair of Commodores on the front row, a pair of Mustangs on the second row, a pair of Commodores on the third row, and a pair of Commodores on the fourth row. So that's how they're going to line up when we get to the race in a few minutes' time. There you go. So very interesting qualifying session there, Brady. The whole field spread 2.4 seconds from pole to 18th place. I mean, if you take the outlier of that one out, being Rosella so far in front of everybody else, it's actually 1.8 seconds the margin from second all the way down to 18th. So it's actually it's quite close actually. The hard tyre sort of evening up things a little bit.
Well, yeah, whether it's evening it up or whether it's just everybody having, it's whatever it is, everybody's having the same experience. Whether they're all just outright struggling, whether they're all just sort of being put back to square zero or square one. It's starting things up a bit. Yeah, a two and a bit second spread over like a 128 lap time, so about 90-second lap time. That's pretty good spread. That's something that across a race will work out pretty well. You're all going to be within range of slipstream of the car in front of you, or probably pretty close to. So gaps will spread out as the racing goes on. But that said, that's not going to happen too much because this is the 3-race format, so they're relatively short races for these guys. So lap traffic shouldn't be an issue unless somebody has to pit or picks up a drive-through or something of the sort. And yeah, it should be just really good racing. And it'll be interesting as well because we're going to see probably one of the few times we see outright sprint racing because tyres won't be a concern.
Yeah, correct. Tyres won't be a concern. You won't need to conserve. It's sort of not like Winton where we had the soft tyre in play, and there were a few drivers that, especially under some safety car conditions, opted to come in and change tyres, especially if they were down the back end of the field. And you're right, this weekend tyres are not going to be a factor.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how this goes for people. As I mentioned as well, some of the guys before, and maybe not the approach people first think of coming into tonight, but with Enduro Cup being delayed, they've got a bit more time to prepare for that now. But Enduro Cup will be hard tyre, will be the same hard tyre and the same physics set as we're currently running in Supercars. So for those guys, especially some of the wild cards that are coming in tonight that are planning on running Enduro Cup, it's a good chance to get acclimatised to the hard tyre from the perspective of a ZB or a Mustang before they then go into the endurance length format later in the year.
Yeah, you're not wrong. It's definitely some good practice for those guys on the hard tyre. This is, of course, the last mandatory hard tyre round for the Supercars Championship. From here on in, there's the Gold Coast 200, which is the next event after this one, which will be a soft tyre, probably the favoured choice, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a few drivers put on the hard tyre at some point in that race, especially if you realise you can get home with the way the safety cars fall and things like that. You might want to try it. So that's an optional, you can pick your tyre, whatever you want for that round. And then you've got the Pukekohe final round, which will be a twin sprint race, which we expect, given the degradation of the tyre and the fact you need a bit more fuel than what you can cram into a tank to get home, that you will have some pit stop activity. But again, wouldn't be surprised to see a bit of an interesting bit on the front straight there with a few drivers doing practice starts. Be very interesting just to see how those events pan out. So there's 3 rounds to go and 6 races total. 3 tonight, 1 at the next round, and then 2 at the Pukekohe finale, which of course is also going to fall on Remembrance Day, ladies and gentlemen. And we've seen a few times already this year the liveries that the Kiwi Sim Sport Stancliffe guys have put together. They've got the medals and the tributes all over the car, which is really fantastic to see. I'm sure a few drivers will probably have a bit of a think about putting some commemorative liveries together for that final round. Now, Zach Brown, one of the wildcards, you were talking about him before, and I was as well. He's been very kindly lent the Scott Stancliffe 718 Kiwi Sim Sports entry for this weekend to drive as a wildcard. He actually did get offered a wildcard for Winton after his good performance there earlier in the year. Unfortunately, he didn't take that one up, and the last minute change of decision for him to take up the wildcard spot this round is seen. He should be able to do, I think he's told us about 2 of the races. He may not be able to do all of them, but he will do at least the first 2 tonight. And then the other wild card that we were talking about, as you said, the other B Hall. So they haven't had to change the windows for this one, or the sticker on the windows for this one, which is great for his point of view. But this is a guy sort of, I guess it's a bit of a meteoric rise road. He's started out in Super 3 and clearly showed that he could mix it up with the Super 2 pace. So actually, of his own accord, I think he was going to be moved up anyway, and then voluntarily has decided, you know what, I'm just going to bite the bullet because I don't want to worry about all the speculation. I'm just going to move it up anyway. And it culminated in 3 race wins at this very track a week ago. So therefore, by virtue of his racecraft and I guess the times that he's been doing and the sheer number of practice laps that he's been doing, it was a bit hard for the ASR admin team to say no.
Yeah, for those that are watching Super 2 and Supercars last year, good sort of broad comparison is to sort of the rise we saw from Damon Woods last year. But no, Bailey jumped in Super 3. I think the first round we maybe wasn't quite at his potential yet. He was giving me a red hot run at Winton for the Super 3 title. He took a round off, came back I think at Townsville, and I think he finished on the podium, or he would have been on the podium in the first race as a Super 3 runner. I think if it wasn't for what happened in the last couple of corners of the last lap, which is what nearly gave me the podium overall. But no, since then he's gotten a lot quicker, and it's probably partially been sort of staking his claim and putting himself in the right pond. It's also been a case of, I'll be honest, all the guys at the top end of Super 3 saying, look, you're a Super 2 runner, you're too quick for us, please bugger off.
Pretty much.
Yeah, no, but he's for some really good pace. Like he's also just been really keen to get in and do some wildcard running. So we might see him in Supercars next year of his own accord. Maybe run a dual program. I'm not sure what his plans are yet, but look, that was sort of the deal. That look, if you want to have a wildcard offer, you're going to be in Super 2, which is a rule we set up so that. Basically, so that those who feel like they're quick enough in supercars are running in the right category, and also we're not bringing people that are maybe too slow or just don't quite have the experience yet to safely be on a supercars grid. But yeah, no, this kid's coming on pretty strong. Him and Zach Brown, actually, both the wildcards for tonight, have actually been sort of working together for Dev Series, sort of outside their team boundaries. Zach, obviously running part of the wide PBF team, but he's been getting in contact with Lockie Lock, who is a direct teammate, and also Bailey, and they've been working together at the top end of the field for Dev Series for the past couple of rounds. So, yeah, some really good pace for Bailey, and if he's going to run Super 2 next year, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe him and Zach are going to team up for that.
Yeah, that'll be a big question and a big talking point in the off-season as well, as to who will actually continue in Dev Series, who's allowed to do dual programs, and who's going to be permanently moved up. I think there's been a few names that have been talked about, who's possibly going to go up. The big noticeable one from last year was the Super 2 champion in Daniel Cox, who finds himself in the Anson Motorsports entry for Supercars this year. He's acquitted himself fairly well, and again kept his nose very clean for a lot of the racing, very minimal incidents, and I guess that's all you can sort of hope for in your rookie season in the main game. And I think a few people being eyed off for potential moves up to Supercars next year. I think Lockie Lock, Nathan Higginson, those sorts of guys that are running at the top end of the development series field are the ones that are sort of being looked at. So they're the two title front runners, and I think that's probably a fair assumption that they're going to be very closely observed over the next couple of rounds, just to see how things go for them. All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We're not too far away from race number 1 for the evening. Race 17 of the 22 race season. 22 races in 2022. That's a bit ironic, isn't it, Rody? Funny how things work out every now and again. And we've seen these guys on the front row plenty of time already in the last 2 seasons, Rosella and Stenberg. We know they won't have each other off at turn 1 or 2. They'll be pretty respectful about it, but it's going to be about what everybody else behind can do. In terms of championship contenders, Rosella's a fair way behind the Devonish and Stenberg battle, but he can't afford to drop too many points for Devonish. He can't afford to have a bad round. As we look at this grid for race 1 this evening.
Alrighty, so starting from pole is Luke Rosella for Senior Team Racing. We saw how just impeccable the pace was in qualifying. Minutes to see how and if that converts across to a race setup for Luke. Starting from second alongside him is Kurt Stenberg for Trans-Tasman Racing. Good to see their familiar liveries back, and actually everybody's back in their familiar liveries after retro round. Third is Tim Redmond, the lead Kiwi driver here tonight for Kiwi Sports Team Hanifa, with Will Devonish in fourth. He's got a little bit of work to do to keep that title fight alive. Fifth is Dane Liccardo for Liccardo Racing. He's actually probably one of his best qualifying performances this season for Dane, and hopefully that translates to a good race for him as well. Sixth is Brenton Fowler for PBF Race Engineering. Actually, for him, probably one of his better qualifying runs as well. And it seems the car's working out for him pretty well. Starting from the fourth row, we've got the 2 Pixel Sim Sports cars of Lewis Wedding and Brendan Ross. And good to see they're back in liveries that I'm struggling to tell apart from a distance. Ninth is Daniel Cox, Fancy Motorsports. Pretty good run for Coxie so far this season. Just keeping away, just quietly working away at the back of the top 10, and he's done that so far in qualifying again tonight. With Termo running at the top 10, actually a good little bump up for Termo at the end there, which is sort of keeping him and Will in there in the titles fight. 11th is Steve Warwick for Warwick Racing Team, with Cam Rutledge alongside him in 12th. Nathan Higginson in 13th, probably one of his better runs in a little while. He's sort of been in a bit of a hole pace-wise in Supercars, running across Supercars and Dev Series the last couple of rounds, so he's aiming to fight back from that. Bailey Hall in the B Hall car in 14th for Luke McHugh Racing. Steve Burko in 15th. Zach Brown, the lead of the Kiwi drivers in Scott Stancliffe's Kiwi Sim Sports car in 16th. Braxton Stancliffe in 17th. NZ Snipes is running out of 18th, and Lockie Lock out of 19th and last on the grid. And that's the 19 cars for race 1.
Certainly is, and we get set to go here. The noise of 19 V8 Supercars rise in unison as we get ready to go for 13 laps at SMP, and away we go off the front row. Rosella leaves a little bit of wheel track. Stenberg had the better reaction time. He's got to go the long way around at turn 1, and he does. And the pair of them, they've cleared off already. Look at the margin they've got over the pack behind. Devonish has jumped Redmond off the start as well, so it looks like the outside groove was the favoured groove there. Lockups from both the front runners. Liccardo up the inside as well of Will Devonish at the beginning there. What a good move that was. Very opportunistic. Takes over P3.
Yeah, Dan had a really good start there. I was looking at the back. I think Daniel Cox and Nathan Higginson both running wide at points through the first corner, but no, really, really good run for Dan Liccardo. Actually, just looking in the background as well, Turbo got a really good start. He's currently battling with Lewis Wedding for the back end of the top 10, so he's picked up a few spots off the start. Really good start for Dane, and Kurt Stenberg, the better jump off the start, up the front row.
It looked like the right-hand side of the grid was the favoured spot to be. That's where the racing line normally goes for turn 1, and everybody on that side of the grid seemed to have a better launch, apart from Tim Redmond, who... sorry, no, wrong way round, sorry. Everybody on the left-hand side, Redmond was on the left. He was actually the one that had the worst start of the lot, as they all come now out of turn 8 for the first time. Have a look at the margin, though. They've checked out already, these two at the front. They've got almost a full second over Liccardo behind. But now the important thing is there's a little bit of a satellite team, customer team, main factory team issue going on here, because you've got Devonish wants to get past Liccardo in a hurry, because championship-wise points, he's got to stay in touch with those leaders. Liccardo is going to let him go. He's just got to be careful he doesn't drop any spots to the cars behind, and he's done a good job there as well. Brendan Ross has had a pretty good start too. He's picked up 2 spots. He's in behind Redmond as Devonish now takes over P3.
Yeah, we would have been 2 minds there. He's been trying to, amongst all the other drivers, trying to sort of motivate Dane, push him along. That's sort of the goal in Saudi to treat the best out of their drivers. Brendan Ross actually looping it off the curb, I think, in the background. And he's now a little wide. Actually, he's now under pressure from Foley. But no, a bit of a conflict, situation there for CRE, but resolved the way that Will wanted in the end, and Dane's now got Tim Redmond giving him a big hurry up. Yeah,
he had a poor exit. Redmond tried for the over and under out of 5, couldn't quite make it work. Barely enough gap at turn 6, but a little bit of panel rubbing, that's going to be okay. That's hard and fair racing, but Redmond's looking pretty racy here. Wants to get P4 back as quickly as he possibly can, and a little bit of rat-a-tat-tat Morse code on the rear right-hand corner of the number 35 Commodore. But he's just got to bide his time here, because there's a little bit of a one-track groove, this little sort of kink through turn 9, and then you can decide what you want to do after that. But good little into battle here. So there was a good train of cars now behind Liccardo. So what have we got here? Coxey's down in 10th, and then behind him, just in touch with Daniel Cox, is Braxton Stancliffe, who's had an almighty start from the rear of the grid.
Yeah, he started out of 17th, so he was with 3 spots up to the back of the grid. He started actually behind Zach, who maybe didn't quite have the start he wanted. Zach's been having some pretty good running. Had some pretty good starts in Supercars, in Dev Series this year, but maybe couldn't quite convert with Supercars, or maybe just felt a bit of a fish out of water and didn't want to get in anyone's way. He's still running around pretty well though further back, but no, very good start for Braxton Stancliffe, and he's probably trying to make some slow. Trying to slowly buy into that, what is it now, like a 6-7 car battle for the top 10.
Yeah, he's just trying to keep in touch with the car in front of him, being Daniel Cox, and just keeping an eye on what the margins are. So the first sector times between the two of them, Stancliffe was a tenth of a second faster, so he's just trying to... Oh, that's not going to help. That little wiggle there as he tried to apply the gas coming out of turn 6 is definitely not going to help. That's going to incentivise Steve Burko behind to have a go here. Stancliffe covers the line, forces Burko to try and go the long way. Potentially over and under here. No, he just very cheekily checks it. and doesn't allow Burko an inch of room to try and make that move stick.
The interesting thing as well that you're going to see with some of these drivers is there's some head games at play. I was talking with Braxton Sandcliffe earlier. He's sort of set himself the goal that he doesn't want to get beaten by Bailey Hall tonight. Bailey Hall being an active Super 2 runner. Braxton being moved up from Super 2 for being too fast. He doesn't want to get beaten by Bailey Hall. Same thing with Nathan Higginson behind. Steve Burko probably a thinker as well. But yeah, Steve's pretty good run out of the last corner. Going to try to go around the outside.
Oh, there he goes.
Braxton's going to give him the room as well. That was very nice.
That was very nice. I was wondering what happened to Stancliffe off of the last turn, but they're going to argue this point up to turn 2 here. Stancliffe going to be on the inside. Burko, if he can hang it, he'll be on the inside for 3 and 4. And he's going to have to work extremely hard to keep this spot.
He's going to have to fall in.
And he's done a really good job there, Steve Burko. That's oh, and then he hit the grass as well. That's the drama. And then now Braxton Stancliffe back down the inside. All the hard work for Burko undone in a millisecond. But
not only that, he's opened the door for Higginson. He's going to give Bailey Hall a shot at this as well.
Yeah, that's a poor run for Burko as well. All the hard work. He did absolutely everything millimetre perfect. All the way up into the exit of turn 3 where he just tried to get a little bit greedy and just the car just decided it wanted to understeer off and take some of the grass on the left-hand side tyres with it, and it's cost him 2 spots. That was a millimetre away. Oh, Bailey Hall sends it in there.
Send.
Yeah, sends it in there really late though as well. And I think he was sort of a bit worried, maybe Burko on a little bit of a, maybe on tenterhooks there, just being very, very conservative. And through goes Hall. But I like to see that though. I like to see Burko having a go. As I said, he did everything right up until the point where the car decided it wanted to be on the grass more than it did on the asphalt.
Yeah, I was actually just looking up through just having a look through the rest of the pack. Actually, the lead battle pack's actually spread out a little bit with the guys racing behind. But I will say the one who's going to bring in a very good view at this moment is Steve Warwick. He's tucked in behind all of this at the moment, and probably at a safe enough distance. If something happens, he can capitalise without getting caught up in it himself.
Yeah, where is Steve Warwick? He's actually down in 16th at the moment. Yeah, so you're right. Oh, there he is, actually in the background. Actually, I was just looking on another screen. He's in the back of shot, actually, I think, making a move on Cam Rutledge. Here we go. Yeah, you're right. He was just keeping an eye on things and sizing up an opportunity. Lost NZ snipes from this one. I'm not sure what's happened there. Warwick down the inside at 4. Oh, and he's looped it as he has. He's had a moment there, and he's had to come back onto the track. So fair go, had a crack down the inside, tried to make the pass stick. Cam left in the room, and just that very, very awkward sort of camber on that corner made life very difficult for Warwick.
Yeah, just some light contact through the corner. It's just picked the car up and twisted it in such a way, and I suppose some of the collision physics that we've got, it just sort of picks the cars up and twists them in that way off what would be fairly light contact. So unfortunate for Steve. He hasn't actually lost too much time to Cam at the end of the day, only a couple of seconds. And the way the guys are battling in front of Cam, he probably would pick that up again with a couple of decent laps into it. And yeah, he's also probably for him, crucially, he's in a bit of clean air, so he can just go out there and run his race.
Absolutely. So Higginson's now corking a champagne bottle with Braxton Stancliffe, Bailey Hall and Steve Burko behind. So he's holding this little train up. Talking about Braxton Stancliffe, we were actually talking to him pre-race just to see him, and he found out there were wildcards running tonight, and especially the people that they were, being one of them being the one that's behind him on track right now. It's like, hang on a minute, I cannot afford to be beaten by a Super 2 driver.
Yeah, I was alluding to that earlier, just with some of the mental games that are going. Probably the same for Higginson as well. Higginson's sort of fight is more with Lockie Lock, who he's comfortably ahead of at this point. But, you know, Bailey's been around the top end of the championship. Like, he's taking points away from Lock and Higginson at the moment in the Super 2 fight, as it were. So he's probably pretty confident, or pretty conscious about not wanting to be getting beaten by Ben Hall. Probably also a bit of a show to Braxton. I mean, Braxton's ex-Super 2, Higginson's current Super 2, but they're probably line ball on pace as well. So a good little scrap here from sort of ex and current Super 2 runners, and as we've mentioned, yeah, probably a little bit of mind games at play as well.
The door was very nearly opened by Braxton Stancliffe there as well, because he had a bit of an awkward check-up out of turn 6, and Hall had a very cheeky look down the inside, but he couldn't make anything of it. And again, had another bit of a half-hearted look at the hairpin, same spot where he went through on Burko a couple of laps ago. Getting close to the half-distance mark of this opening race. Only 50-kilometre sprints, 3 of them tonight. Higginson's had a poor exit. That car twitching away there as he tried to apply the power. But for him, it didn't seem to make any real shred of a difference. He's actually managed, in fact, he's pulling away from Stancliffe there as well, so he must have had an equally as poor an exit. Little pinch of a brake though for Higginson through turn number 1. But they're not quite close enough to have a lunge at him. Hall has a little bit of a look down the inside of Stancliffe here at turn 2. That's a little bit of a day late and $1 short, and he pulled out of it wisely.
Oh, a small splash yellow flag, then trying to figure out what it was. Tim Redmond.
Yeah, Redmond's had a bit of
a few spots.
Yeah, so Redmond was actually in behind Liccardo, and he's now, what's he fallen into? He's fallen into 10th place. So something for Redmond here. Have a look at this on the Outlaw Broadcasting replay. I think he'd been fighting with Liccardo for a while, and I think it looks like he'd actually just made that move stick. And then what happens here? Oh, big slide out of turn 3. So just got on the gas a little bit too early. Drops 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, half a dozen spots. That's all it takes.
And that's so easy to do at that corner because you're just sitting there waiting to get on the throttle, waiting on the throttle. Finally, you're on the throttle. Normally, it's understeer you catch there, but I don't know whether you go to the curb or what it was, but you'll oversteer. I've seen a lot of the drivers. I just watched in succession actually. Stancliffe and Steve Burko both get the car sideways out of the hairpin. A lot of drivers seem to be tuning very loose setups for tonight, and maybe that's what it is. It's just that they're preferring oversteer versus understeer, and so when the oversteer happens, it's killer oversteer. We've seen some big slides from guys tonight, and then for that for Tim as well. He's going to work back on that for the next couple of races to get himself back up to the pointy end. But you're right, all it takes is a little spin, a little loss of rear traction, and you'll lose half a dozen spots.
There's several groups of 3 on the track at the moment, Rody. Remember what I said at the beginning of the show? Bad things usually happen in 3s. They come in 3s. So you've got Liccardo leading Ross, leading Foley. Oh, Foley sideways,
Foley,
left, right,
gee
back
whiz.
and forth. Well, that's the Brenton Foley way, isn't it?
Yes.
If it's not sideways, it's not worth driving. So I was about to say, bad things happen in 3s. Well, there you go. Something else happened to Foley, and he's dropped about 3 or 4 tenths off the back of Brendan Ross. Then there's this little battle of 3 headed by Lewis Wedding. So he's got Termo and Daniel Cox for company, which is probably about to become a quartet in the next few minutes or so. And then you've got this group of 3. Devonish has closed the margin down. So he was... Remember back at the end of lap 1, start of lap 2, he was about 1.4 seconds behind this 2 pair. And he's actually closed this margin right down now. So Stenberg's gone to the lead at the beginning of the race, which we saw. Rosella's sort of a tail gunner for him in second at the moment now, purely because that also takes points away from Will and helps Stenny extend his points advantage at the top of the leaderboard. And then Devonish in third. And we've got, what are we on now? Just started lap 9, so there's another 6 laps to go. We're going to keep an eye on all this. It's very hard to keep an eye on sometimes with everything that's going on here in ASR Supercars. But there's several drivers out there at the moment, Rody, that I'm looking at, and they're doing a phenomenally good job. There's been very little incidents throughout the entire race so far.
Yeah, I will say actually, just to give you an idea of just how much this tightened up between Will and Luke Rosella, their best times are equal. I didn't pick what it was. I didn't pick what it was as a flash over across the finish line, but their best times are equal. Kurt Stenberg's best is only like a tenth slower. So I'm not sure. I'm going to guess again the race setup for both of these guys, probably one that basically turns this into a qualifying tyre and gets it to have the wear of a soft to really extract pace out of it would potentially be my guess. And maybe it's a case of Luke's having to try and save some tyre here within that aggressive wear strategy versus Will Devonish, who, whether he's had the practice time to put in or he's just going to go for broke, he's just running that car as hard as it goes and waiting to see what happens with the tyres when he gets to the end. Or whether, I don't know, maybe a bit of fuel gambling as well, because it's a litre is not much, but at the same time, a litre is an extra kilo worth of weight and gives as much weight out of the car as possible. That helps as well. But yeah, there's a good little, that said, actually looking at the battle now, it's actually gone the other way. Luke Rosella's has sort of responded to Will's pace, even though they're not having a direct fight, and he's now challenging Kurt Stenberg for the lead. Yeah, they've picked up their pace a little bit now. Devonish has closed in on them, and now they've decided to up the ante just a little bit. Last time around, they were definitely a few tenths of a second quicker than Devonish. Coming back to the lap times we were talking about just a few moments ago, Ruddy. Stenberg's best lap is a 29.043. That was set on lap 2.
Luke Rosella and Will Devonish share a best lap time. Rosella's was also on lap 2. Devanish's time, when we have a look at him on the standings, his was on lap 4. So all in the early part of this race. And just noticing there's something that's just a little bit weird.
Just a timing glitch.
Wigging out. Yeah, it's wigging out with the timing glitch at the moment. Yeah, as I was looking on live races, I could see that they were switched around. And here we go, down the inside. Rosella tries to stick his nose in there on Stenberg. Little bit of door handle banging and paint exchange. And they get away. And Rosella's been spat out. He's been spat out.
Sure. I'm not sure whether there was... I don't think it was a move. I think it was just they got too close to each other and just wheel hopped. I'm going to go back and have a look at that one on replay. That was... That was a lot.
That was big. And on top of that, it puts potentially puts Rosella into the clutches of Dane Liccardo, depending on if there's any substantial damage to the number 1 SSR Commodore. Oh, there was barely a cigarette paper's width in there for Rosella to make it happen. The hard bit for us is when we saw it on the other side. Oh! I might have to go just wind that back a little bit and have a bit more of a look at it from the, maybe from the different camera angle. Here we go. The curb camera was the one that sort of got in the way. Let's have a look here. Oh dear.
It kind of looks like the physics of it looked like he got hooked almost intentionally. I don't think it was a case of that. I think it was just they got a bit too close to them and wheel hopped, and that's what yanked the car across. But that's an odd one. What it has done is, you mentioned, it's put Luke. He's not. I don't think he's at risk of Dane catching him because Dane's got still got Brendan Ross and Brenton Foley up his chuff, and they'll be giving him a definite bit of what for. What it also has done is it's knocked Kurt a few tenths off of Kurt's run down that straight, which is Will definitely right under the rear wing now of the number 47.
Yeah, it has indeed. We go back to the front of the group here. There's only 2 and a little bit laps to go. And you're right, Devonish is right with Kurt Stenberg here. I'm just trying to work out where the weak and strong sectors are at the moment, because right now it's just a tenth in Stenberg's favour through Sector 1, and they're pretty evenly matched through Sector 2. There's nothing in it. And then Rosella's a distant third at the moment, so probably with the way the tyres are at the moment, I doubt he's going to be able to catch up to the back of them, barring Stenberg drastically getting into a big fight with Devonish, and then the pair of them being held up. So penultimate lap begins. Stenberg from Devonish from Rosella. Liccardo still hanging on to P4. Started 5th, moved up to 4th, and he has had Brendan Ross gnawing away at the back of him lap after lap after lap. But look at this, he's parking the car in all the right places. He's leaving him the gap down the outside, saying, if you want to have a go, come and have a go at me. Rossi's not interested. And everywhere that Dane puts the car, Rossi doesn't have an answer for him at the moment. And then Brenton Foley is just sitting there going, will you two guys please just come together so I can have 4th place?
Proof of what you said earlier was not being able to keep track of everything that's happening in this race. I just went to the race in the background. Tomo's just would have passed on and Daniel Cox for 9th, but Tim Redmond and Lewis Wedding are having a championship battle over 7th.
Yeah, they are now. And look at this. Here's the move off of turn number 5 for Redmond. Got a great over and under out of 5 and has the high ground and the block pass on as well on Lewis Wedding. Check that out. That's how you do it. But he's actually got a bit slow off of turn 6, and Wedding's going to have him back through Corporate Hill and down to 7. What a great exchange between these two combatants and seasoned drivers. And Termo's now go by in as well. And there goes down the inside. There goes Daniel Cox. He wants that spot back that Termo just took away from him. And they're playing for the back end of the top 10.
Yeah, as I said, like this is like last round championship battle stuff, and it's over the back end of the top 10. There's everywhere we look, there's some really good racing so far tonight.
Absolutely. The bell lap sounds. 1 more lap to go. The race leaders are still duking it out in front, and we probably need to give them their time of thinking. Devonish has a little bit of a half-hearted look at turn 2. There's no space there for you, and Stenberg knows that he's just got this last lap to go. This is one of his favourite tracks. He's been here several times over the course of the last few years, and he's always had a very strong motor car and a very strong result. And he's just managed to clear away from Will after that little half-hearted look at turn number 2 as well. Is that going to be enough?
I don't know. He's going to have to have a pretty good run at this point, either out of the hairpin or he's going to have to be close enough to do something down the out of the last corner. I think he's probably a bit too far away at this point. It's 6-7 tenths. He's going to have to gain something here. Actually, Kurt Stenberg, big slide through the hairpin. He might actually be able to make that work for him. He's only lost maybe a tenth in that. I think it's going to have to be something through the last corner here, probably for Kurt Stenberg, actually, for Will to get any closer and have a chance at this one.
No, I think you're right. I think he's safe for the moment. And, yeah, just through the last couple of corners, not too much you have to worry about here. So Stenberg is going to get the chocky bickies here in race number 1 in little over 19 and a half minutes. Great motor race. Great exchange late between these two as well. So Stenberg home for first. Then Devonish second. Rosella a distant third, but this group joined at the hip again. Licato's going to get his best result. He's going to get home for fourth. Just manages to hang on to fourth ahead of Ross and Foley. Where's this other battle? Wedding has won the war with Redmond. He gets home for seventh. Redmond eighth on the recovery drive, and then behind them it was Cox and Termo. What a heavyweight slugfest all the way up and down the field in race, and this is only race 1, Rhodey.
Yeah, well, actually going back then, there was a couple of tenths between Burko and Braxton at the end. Actually, we missed the end of that battle, but good to see Burko pulled some pace on late there. Bailey Hall sitting in 13th, a bit of a gap actually, so he lost touch with those two at the end. Cam Rutledge a little further back in 14th. It was 4 tenths at the end between Steve Rourke and Nathan Higginson. I think Higo maybe a drop back or what happened there, I'm not sure. And in the end, Lockie Lock actually he kept track with these guys and actually managed to get a pass on Zach Brown, but Zach Brown does still finish in what is his first Supercars outing.
Yeah, just having a look at things here as well. Higginson actually had 2 really poor laps in there, laps 11 and 12. They were 1 minute 36s.
Ooh.
And there was a really poor middle sector in one of them, and there was a really poor final sector in another. So I take it he's either got loose as a goose somewhere along the line. Excuse me. That's the Sprite talking, not me. He got loose as a goose somewhere at some point, and has unfortunately coughed up a couple of spots as a result of that. So he's going to be disappointed with that one. He's going to have a hell of a lot of work to do. So just the one non-finisher in NZ Snipes out on lap 3, or after 3 laps, sorry. Undiagnosed issue there. Just having a bit of a look to see what it might have been. Looks like it might have potentially been an internet disconnect, just judging by how the results are. Important thing for Braxton Stancliffe, though, Rhodey, is he's at least got his wish for the moment. He has made sure he finished ahead of the Super 2 combatants that are in for wildcard appearances tonight. So that's at least one check box off his homework, and he's going to do it twice more.
Yeah, just having a look at the live chat. Kurt has actually chimed in, reckoning that was a bit of an escape and Ingle moment, and you know what, the right section of the track for it. So
far off
he
it,
sticks
actually.
that box. Yeah, pretty close to it. The difference is Luke ended up on the wrong side of the track for it, but it's along those lines. But no, I think what's helped actually with the battle packs we so far found in the first race tonight is it's enough of a cars in a battle that you can have battling without being so many that it's inevitably going to turn into something that requires a safety car. Because you start to throw 6-7 cars into a battle, especially if they're all trying to occupy the same piece of tarmac, and something has to break. And normally it's not somebody falls out of pace, it's somebody falls off the road into somebody else and there's a safety car or a yellow flag or somebody's race is ruined. But with the exception of what happened with Kurt and Luke, and to be fair, Luke only lost a spot in it, maybe technically 2. It was perfectly clean racing the whole way around. It was beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful to watch, actually. And I must say, I enjoyed watching probably what I think has got to be one of the biggest defensive efforts I have ever seen in ASR, with Dane Liccardo holding off advance after advance after advance from Tim Redmond and then later from Brendan Ross for a whole 13-lap duration. I take my hat off to it. I really do. That's probably, to have the mental capacity to be able to do that for the better part of 20 minutes, that's a tick in my book. And I'm a defensive driver, so that's a big tick in my book.
Yeah, no, I think like Dane's problem this year has just sort of been he hasn't maybe found himself racing with the people he wants to race with. And it's just about finding that match. Sometimes it's people with a similar pace, sometimes people with similar racecraft, sometimes it's a bit of both. I think tonight, at least so far, based off that first race, look, he's found people that give him fair room on track, that don't try making moves where the moves just aren't going to happen. He's found him, and it goes both ways. There was a lot of respect shown for Dane, a lot of respect shown from Dane for the other two around him as well. He was pulling all the legal moves, but he wasn't, just chopping Rossi's nose for no reason. He was doing it where we had the legal right to do, if he was doing it at all. Like Dane's been at a point for the season, especially in the last few rounds, where he just wants to enjoy racing again, and I think he's got there so far tonight, which has been a good tick for him as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, the hard part for all these drivers now is they've got a 5-minute turnaround between races. So there's just the 5-minute warm-up session, which is underway right now, while we're going to set the grid here. We actually might take a very short break here in Central Commentary while the grid is being formulated for race number 2, and we'll be right back after this. Don't go anywhere. The 2022 ASR Supercars Championship is proudly brought to you by Cam Rutledge Electrical, a licensed electrical contractor in Nowra, New South Wales. And Beyond Electrical, specialists in electrical, domestic, commercial, industrial and maintenance work in Auckland, New Zealand. The ASR team would also like to pay thanks to those businesses that helped us over the course of the 2021 season. Matt Harvey Repair and Tune, Smith & Sons Renovations and Extensions, Design, Plan, Construct. Penrite, a better class of oil since 1926. Ryco Filters, the professional's choice since 1936. And Milwaukee Tool, nothing but heavy duty. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the ASR Supercars Championship in 2022, round 9 from Sydney Motorsport Park. We've just had a really ripping opening race for the night. We've still got 2 more to go. And the way that these things work, if you haven't seen a broadcast of this before, it's a slightly different format each week. And this week it's what we call a triple header format. So that means there's 3 races all in a row, and the grid is set for race 1 by the results of qualifying, which has been and done. And then of course race 1's everybody starts. Where you finish in race 1 determines where you start in race 2, and where you finish in race 2 determines where you start in race 3. It's what they call a progressive grid format. It's the same sort of thing that you see in a lot of your grassroots racing and your local state racing series. It just makes life a little bit simpler for everybody. Still gives a lot of people some really good track time to boot. And we're just in the throes of about 30 more seconds of warm-up. And then we're going to be gridding up for race 2, Rhodey.
Yeah, sorry, just got back. Yeah, actually, I'm not going to try and make something out of nothing because I've got nothing to go off of.
When do you have something to go off, Rhodey?
Well, no, normally with commentary, even if I'm only half paying attention, I can lead off of what you're doing. But having just walked back into it, I've got no idea what you've been doing about for the past minute. But no, it's just been some really, really good racing tonight. I was just thinking earlier that I normally manage to get my water bottle to last for an entire race night, depending on the format. But I had to go refill it again after just the first race because it's just so much to talk about that even I can't find the space to talk about everything that's happened in the first race.
Yeah, well, I've got to keep trying to protect my voice as well because I've actually got commentary duties tomorrow. Lewis Wedding and myself are actually up to Winton. We're leaving at 6:30 a.m. in the morning to head up to Winton for the Harrop State Race, a 4-hour, which we were actually there when it was called the Freedom 4-hour last year, the inaugural event, and they were so happy with what we did commentary-wise that they've invited us back, and they do a really good job, all the guys at Raceworks Promotions, to look after everybody that goes there. I'm actually going to be doing some social media work for them as well as the commentary. So if you're interested in seeing how things are going, of course, it's going to be on the live timing with racing.natsoft.com.au. It's also going to be on Raceworks Promotions on Facebook, so that's where we're going to be posting all the updates. And it's actually a really good event. It was great last year when there was only sort of about 10 cars or so. This year I think they're up to about 14 or 15, so it's slowly growing in popularity. It just takes a couple of years, I guess, to get a few things going every now and again with when you're trying to get an event off the ground. And Dean Lilly from Ravage Raceworks and long-term improved production and sports car pilot in Ben Schutz have done a phenomenal job to get that up and going. And they've got a good crew on board as well, managing the timing, and seasoned veterans in the David and Jean Bellinger doing some work with the secretary and all those other duties that go on behind the scenes that nobody gives a lot of thanks for, but we do appreciate them. And I'll be going up there, and hopefully the weather remains good. That's the important bit for me. As long as it's all sunny and shining at the end of the day, I don't think I really care too much about what else goes on because you're in for a great day regardless.
Yeah, I think the hard part probably to trying to. I'm not saying the issue is trying to sell the idea of the 4-hour, but the hard issue maybe is some of the guys in IP. IP is sprint racing nowadays. It's not sort of the days way back when where what's we considered to be supercars was production or series production racing. It sort of fell more into an IP ethos. It's more sprint racing nowadays, and we see that with some of the top end cars in the field. Like there's some of the guys with some of the Commodores putting out 5, 6. I've heard north of that in terms of power figures. They're not designed to run over a distance because they won't make the tyres will probably not last. The drivetrain components might not last, and the fuel obviously won't last. I think I was talking to one of my mates, Luke Greshkumbo, and I think he was putting similar fuel through his engine that I would have in the V for the entire race. It might have been actually sports sedans, but they're putting a lot of fuel through those cars as well. So less of an endurance format in the way IP cars are set up, but no, that's still doing pretty good. I remember that being a thing last year, and obviously that'll be good again tomorrow. But right now, we've got the grid for race number 2.
We do, and here's how they'll line up. So Kurt Stenberg managed to get the race 1 win. He still is the championship leader at the moment, and he just extended his margin over this man who's in 2nd place on the road and 2nd place in the championship, Will Devonish. He late off for Luke Rosella, a couple of laps from home, puts him in 3rd ahead of Dane Liccardo, so those two are going to renew some hostilities off the 2nd row of the grid. Then you got Brendan Ross in 1st of the Pixel Sim Sports Commodores, along with Brent Foley in 6th place. They're on row 3. Lewis Wedding, who held off the recovering Tim Redmond into P7 and 8 for those guys. Daniel Cox and Termo, they're going to renew their hostilities. They were on the 5th row of the grid, and they had a great run at toward the back end of that race. Then you got Steve Burko, P11 for the CRE Motorsport Mustang with Braxton Stancliffe. Having a good run there as well, managing to hold off the advances of Bailey Hall in the Bunnings Warehouse-backed Luke McHugh Racing entry. And you got Cam Rutledge in 14th, the CRE Electrical man in 14th. Steve Warwick, Nathan Higginson, Lockie Locke, Zach Brown and NZ Snipes, who was the only retiree from the last race, starting off the back row of the grid. And there's still a little bit of a lap to go. Gives us an opportunity to have a look here at our race facts with thanks to Daniel Cox Designs. We didn't get a chance to look at this for the opening race, but here they are anyway. As we know, in the sprint racing format, the pit stops are optional. And if you do need to come down the lane to do anything, at least 30 seconds line to line, probably about 40 by the time you factor in the stop. Compound tyre, well, as we said before, that's the hard tyre compound. It is mandatory. And the extra notes, we've said it already, usage of the concrete areas, the outsides of a lot of these turns, turns 5, turns 11, and turns 10 and 11. Also some of the outside strips on some of the places like turn 3 and a couple of others as well. You're going to use them to your advantage on this hard tyre as far as the track can allow. An important bit here, Rhodey, is the start, because everybody on the right-hand side of the grid last time got a really good start.
Yeah, we're ready to go now. I'm interested to see how this goes. A couple of guys really angle to take advantage of that better start if they're going to get it.
Here we go.
The revs are rising, and pretty good start so far for everybody. Actually, Dane Liccardo, I think, was on maybe a little bit poor start, but he's converted well, actually. Having a look now at Kurt Stenberg at turn 1. Well,
here we go. Well, Devonish got the whole shot on the outside again, so that outside row seems to be the one to make the move here, and he parks it right down the middle of the road ahead of Luke Rosella, and then you've got Stenberg followed by Liccardo. So all the top 4 have had a reasonably good start. That's probably one of the best starts I think Devonish has had in quite some time. I know his starts have been a very moot talking point for a number of seasons now, but he has managed to convert that one. It did look like he missed the jump initially, and then Stenberg's car just broke into wheel spin, left a pair of 11s and saw him tumble down the order to 3rd.
Yeah, very interesting now. Oh, there's a bit of contact already. Luke Rosella, not obviously having to conserve or even think about conserving the same way as at the start of the first race with Will Devonish being a few spots back from him. He's now got Will in his windscreen rather than in his rear view mirror. So he's been putting the blowtorch to him already. There was a bit of contact out of, I think, turn 5. Sort of a difference of opinion in how they came out of the corner. And Luke's maybe looking to have a run. Oh, he is looking to have a run into the last corner.
Yeah, we just actually were on the curb cam for a second there, and he was on the far outside. That's going to hang him out to dry. Liccardo might buy into this as well, and he does. And he's legally entitled to do it because he was out there. So Rosella was outside the track limits. Liccardo slips through on the inside to P3, but I fear it's all but brief. He's going to have to be careful here. He's got to leave some room on the outside, which he does. It tightens up the line here, and now he's going to have to take a defensive approach down to turn 2 to hang on to this position, which he does.
Yeah, he's got it for the moment. He's going to need to kind of hold him off for the first part of the corner. That said, Luke's got some good car pace if he wants to tap into it. He is going to be behind the corner at the moment. I think it was pretty fair game coming into the last corner. Oh, as he tries to move down the inside of Dan Liccardo, he might actually get that one done.
He's got it done.
Probably for the best for the both of them.
Oh, not to fight it. No, that's gone horribly wrong there. And the rejoin wasn't great either as well, because he's come right on in front of Brendan Ross. I dare say there's going to have to, there probably should be a redress take place for that.
Yeah.
We'll let the stewards sort that one out after this. But they both were getting into each other, I fear. And Rosella's now found himself in behind Foley, and ahead of them as well as Brendan Ross. Then you've got Redmond, and who's actually made a spot on Lewis Wedding. And then you've got a whole train of cars all just angry, waiting to round somebody up that makes a mistake through here. But that it's a bit difficult to call. Initial look says Rosella was down the inside, and then Liccardo tried to stay there for the next corner, but I didn't have a really good solid look at it to see if any one driver was sort of at fault for that. But we'll have to keep an open mind, I think, with that. We look at that a bit later on.
Yeah, the point I was trying to make with the earlier one was I was pretty ambitious for Luke to try and go around the outside of Will, essentially the outside of Will into the last couple of corners, and there was a bit of fairly negligent contact. It was just at the point of the corner that it happened, it just sort of spat Luke off into the runoff. He'll probably get back in touch at this point. This is sort of Will's best chance. I'm not sure how NSC, if anything's become of the contact with Will and Luke, but at things at this point, this is Will's best chance to try and get something to happen. Luke's currently just trying to get the pass back done, and I think he has got the pass done on Foley. So now his next target is Brendan Ross. Yeah, he's done. He's down the inside of Foley, so that's pretty easy. Here's the onboard view from Steve Burko's car. It's a lash up. Have a look at this. It's like a freight train at the moment. It's just a complete and utter lash up of cars ahead of him. As far as the eye can see, he was pretty much right tucked under the back of Higginson's rear wing. But buried this deep in the field in 13th, and to see all these cars ahead of you, your heart just sinks. Yeah, Rossi got out on pretty early. I think he recognised that Luke's pace is not conducive to the sort of pace Rossi's had so far tonight. Rossi's been pretty good in pace, and there was a little bit of contact, but it's worked out pretty well in the end. Dane's lost a couple of spots, but crucially, he hasn't actually lost a lot of pace, so he's put him behind Brendan Ross, but Dane knows in himself that he's of the pace of Rossi and probably of the pace to actually take the fight to Rossi. So that's probably one of the, well, I wouldn't say the cleanest way that could have gone, but everything's settled now as far as that sits. So Luke's now free to check off and try and catch up with Will and Kurt Stenberg, the latter of which is just at the fast lap of the race. Yeah, just having a look at this on the replay here. Ooh, that's a little bit of akin to a bit of a bump and run there, but I think, as you said, probably maybe some retaliatory contact, which is usually a bit of a no-no. But I just didn't get quite a good look at that one. I mean, that one looks actually pretty blatantly obvious, but we'll, again, that one will be looked at probably post-race. Stewards will come and have a bit of a look at that one, and they'll figure that one out. But it has, as you said, allowed Rosella some freedom now and some clear air to go and chase the top two again. As it stands right now, he's currently just under 4 seconds adrift of Kurt Stenberg. Yeah, so he's got a little work to do. Will be holding up Kurt only so far as to keep him from passing him. So it's sort of up to Luke to try and catch back up on that pace. Good little battle now happening back of this now.
Two cars around. Two cars around. Cox around and Turmo around. So they were down the inside of a few cars there. No safety car. It looked like they went around all on their own. It was so weird to see him. So Cox decided he wanted to have a bit of a go down the inside of the car in front of him at Braxton Stancliffe. Here we go. This will be a bit more of a better angle, I think. So there it is. So Stancliffe's quite wide, and it doesn't look like there was a pinch or anything. They both just went round all by themselves. Yeah, and there was a slight bit of contact between Higginson and Turmo. It maybe Turmo saw what was happening to Cox and checked up, which is what caused the contact. But yeah, they both had pretty simultaneous spins there. Both dropped back up at the same amount of time, actually, in the effort of the recovery. And that's put them off the back of this train. But knowing the way that train is battling, which is what I was going to talk to you about earlier, if that train continues to battle the way it's been battling, they'll be back into that in the next couple of laps. They've both got top 10 pace so far tonight. But yeah, that was a bit of an odd one. Yeah, very odd one. And well, the Liccardo train has started again. So with Ross now managed to be ahead of Liccardo, and that puts him into, there's Redmond down the inside of Foley. Jeez, we didn't see that coming from the onboard of Brent Foley. He had to leave him a space in turn 6 to make that happen. Redmond on a bit of a recovery mission at the moment. He's picked up a couple of spots so far in this race, and Lewis and Braxton Stancliffe.
I was just looking at him in the background, trying to get a move on, trying to open a door that maybe wasn't quite open wide enough for a Commodore. He was trying to make it wide enough for a Commodore.
He certainly was trying to make it wide enough for a Commodore, but didn't quite get it done. Foley just looks like he's in a little bit of a weird predicament here. He's a little bit sideways in some of these corners, not to the Foley-esque sideways extent that we've seen for God knows how many years now, but just doesn't look like the car underneath him is just agreeing with him at some points of the circuit. He was very wide of the apex there. Look how far off the apex curve he was.
I'm going to cut up to the front of the field because I've just had a look at the timing. They're side by side at this point.
Yeah, they are indeed coming through the first couple of corners, and Stenberg's trying to take the long route round the outside of turn 3, and for the moment, Devonish holds. But this is important because every time that Stenberg tries to make a move like this, forces Devonish into a situation where he has to defend. Here comes the blue and black SSR Commodore right behind.
Yeah, and Luke, you know, a man on a mission. Oh, that was very nearly very messy.
He skated in on the rear brakes there, Will Devonish, and then Stenberg really didn't have much of an opportunity to check up there, wanted the proper racing line, and this is now just eating away this advantage. Luke Rosella's coming at them hard now. All this battling has cost them 6 to 7 tenths of a second to Rosella just in the first sector alone. And it's swung again. It's almost like another second at the moment. So Rosella's pretty much, you can say he's with them now, pretty much. That's what we can say.
Yeah, no, as I said, man on a mission. He's driving with a bit of anger, and I'd imagine he's channeled that, and just clean air as well, which these two sort of haven't had. Will's had to be having on his mirrors. Kurt's had the dirty air and has had Will through his windscreen. He's trying to keep an eye on. He's going to have another move again. That was never quite going to work though.
No, that wasn't a move.
That was the car west off the corner.
That wasn't a move. That was just Devonish having a really awkward moment for braking at turn 1 to try and get the turn in there, and Stenberg gives him a shove for his trouble and says, "Oh well, I'm here. Don't think I'm not going to be disappearing anytime soon." But yeah, he almost did a Foley then, just tried to turn it in for the turn, I guess maybe a little bit too late, and rear end didn't want to cooperate. The car's not stable in the rear. That's what I'm taking out of this. The car's skating into some corners on the rear brakes. It happened up here just a lap ago. Let's see what happens this time. He's being forced to go quite deep. That's a little bit better this time around. So he's trimmed the car up just to smarten that performance and arrest that type of manoeuvre again. But car doesn't look happy at some parts of the racetrack. He's having to play a mega defensive effort at the moment.
Yeah, I talked in race 1 about people having to tune cars for oversteer. Wilson's one of the guys that are doing it. He nearly got a poor run there out of the hairpin. Although Kurt trying to take the inside, bit of a sort of a block pass or a block defense from Will sort of checked him up as well. Luke's definitely in this now. They're now a very tight little 3-car battle. And what was you said earlier about bad things happening in 3s? Yeah, we've still got half the race to go yet.
Yeah, well, they've just about to clock up 7 laps, so there's 6 more to go. 6 more to go after this one. They're starting lap 8 right now. This is going to be one hell of an effort to hold off this pair for another 6 laps. I mean, we talked about Liccardo's defensive effort in race 1, and it's going to be a monumental task for this to happen in race 2. Stenberg now down the inside of turn 2, all nice and clean. A little bit of panel and door banging going on there. But holding around the inside, or outside of turn 2. Now the inside for 3 is Devonish, so he might be getting his ears boxed in here, but he's up for the fight, I think, for the moment. Now Rosella goes through to P2, so that's just taking advantage of a little small opportunity that opened, but has he got the pace? Has he taken anything out of those tyres that, will hamper him a bit later in this race? I think he's probably got just about as good a set of tyres on him as what Devonish and Stenberg do right now, because most of the hold-up, or most of the time loss for the top 2 to Rosella was when they started to get locked in combat with each other.
Yeah, and even if they're tuning their cars to be really aggressive on the tyres, they are still hard tyres. They're still going to have a little bit of extra life in them than what they're sort of allowing for with a 13-lap race. I don't think they're running them to the point where they'll pop on lap 14. But yeah, it's you're right. The battling scrubbed the tyres for Kurt and Will. Just the hard running and sort of the battling back through the pack for Luke Rosella scrubbed his tyres. So they're probably running pretty even tyre wear. It's just gonna be down to how they've set the cars up to wear the tyres as well. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Will's relative rears are a little worse compared to the 2 around him, just because he's got his car set up to work the rear a little more.
We're just having a bit of a look at the replay here, and what happened to Tim Redmond. He got served by Foley. I was wondering why Redmond had fallen down the order so badly, and Foley with a massive brake lock-up into turn 6 and straight into the back of the pack and safe Mustang.
Yeah, I saw them a little earlier, actually, going through the pack down at turn 1. They're having a really good little scrap, sort of all stuck up behind Dane, and so that sort of stuff happens when you're sort of stuck in a bit of a road train, that the squabbling starts to happen behind. And yeah, I just went back to check that myself. Just the tyres little lock up just at the wrong point sort of served him back of Tim. Credit to Foley though, he saw immediately that he'd done wrong, and he's redressed down the front straight. So.
Yeah, he's got that done, so that's an important bit there. Just saw as well, Rosella's decided to pick the pocket of Will Devonish at turn 6 on the 9th lap, and that sends him through to the race lead. So the gap was there. Devonish couldn't really afford to cover the line into 6. You need to sort of stay as far right to open up that corner as much as you can. Thought he had the run and didn't quite have as far enough ahead. Now Devonish's got to be careful here, and there's been some contact, and Stenberg is around. Bit of wheel interlocking contact. Oh, you have to be really careful there too, because Ross came around that final corner. There goes Liccardo, there goes Wedding, and Braxton Stancliffe coming along as well. Only caught the tail end of that one, Rhodey. That looked really awkward. I think there has been some talk with the way that the rules are this round at this last sort of part of the chicane. So let's have a look at it again. Here we go. So Devonish ahead, goes outside the line. Stenberg also outside the line. And then it get a little close for comfort. Right there's an interlock of wheels. But I don't know. It's hard to tell from that angle if there's anything, any malice in that. I don't think there is any malice in it. And then Stenberg did a really good job to check himself before re-entering, because he would have T-boned Brendan Ross for sure.
I think it's a similar thing to what we saw with, I think it was Steve Warwick, maybe Cam Rutledge in the first race, where it's just like side-to-side contact, maybe wheel-to-wheel contact just at the wrong time, has just pitched the car on the inside into a spin. Yeah, like if Kurt had stayed on the track, you could maybe argue an element of, Will left the track, he should see the position, but they both went into the runoff, so I'm not sure how that one would be looked at, even just from the driver's point of view, as to whether Kurt feels like he was particularly hard done by.
This is getting, speaking of being hard done by, that was getting interesting through turn 8 for a minute there. Stancliffe was passed at Corporate Hill and thought there was an opportunity to go again, but at this stage, no, definitely not, and probably just needs to tuck in here. Maybe just tuck in behind the 47, learn some lines, and just try and stay with him for as long as he can. So
at this point, Braxton can use him to sort of switch him up to battle in front, which is what's left of the Big Dane train at this point. Yeah, well, that pretty much is disseminated. And Dane's got, who's he got behind him? He's got Lewis Wedding behind him, so those two are no strangers to hostility. But what I want to do note here, though, Rhodey, is we're going to go back a couple of spots, and the Kiwi Sim Sports Auto Met car of Nathan Higginson is inside the top 10. What? Well, what? Yeah, it's actually not only that he is... Braxton. But otherwise, he is the best running Kiwi Sim Sports driver at the moment as well, by virtue of... Burko! Him with Foley. And Burko, that was a good catch. That was a proper pants-shitting save for Steve Burko off of turn 3. But, Higgins going to be in a fun position because, it wasn't 12 months ago, but it was equivalent calendar position ago in Super 2 last year that Higginson got his first, was his first race win with teammate of sorts, Lockie Burke being the tail gunner for him. Yeah, this is last year. It was last year, yeah. I'm just curious on how much of this race at this point is, at least to protect him at his good finish, is if Tim passes Burko, is Tim going to stay behind, or is Tim technically as sort of the one ahead of the team? Is he going to orchestrate a pass, or I don't know what's going to happen with all this. So that said, Steve Burko probably a bit too hard into the last complex to sort of put himself behind Tim Redmond. So a lap and a bit. Can Tim catch Higo? Probably. Can Tim pass him? Maybe. Is there going to be some team orders in play? We just don't know. Well, the important thing here, I think, is that Tim's in the championship fight. He's third in the standings, and he's fighting with Brendan Ross and Brendan Foley, both of whom are ahead of him on track at the moment in this race. So every point for him at the moment is critical, because remember, you only get 100 points for a race win in these short
sprint races, these triple headers, maximum still at 300 points on the table for any one driver in a night, so it's still the same situation as Supercars, but point structure very altered. Burko's done it again. He's done it again, and that one was worse than what the last one was. But I dare say Redmond will try and orchestrate a pass somewhere along the line. Now, back to this little, the Dane train, I think as we're calling it. So, Brendan Ross has got P3 at the moment by the scruff of the neck. I reckon he's going to be safe. Even if Stenberg gets past Liccardo, I think that he's going to be safe. Liccardo's job, I think, for the moment for Will Devenish is to hold up Stenberg as much as he possibly can from a points perspective. But at this stage, we still got to have a look at, there's that incident that we saw with Liccardo and Rosella. I think they were involved in a couple of incidents. There's also the other one at this part of the course between the TTR Commodore and the CRE Mustang that will definitely be looked at, even though if it's innocuous, it'll still be checked out. And from a points point of view, it's sort of going to even out a little bit here because Devenish finished third in that last race, and he's now in second in this one. So round points are going to be at a bit of a premium here. We'll have to get you ready to do the math between races to work out who's sitting where in this one, because that's how it dictates the interviews over the course of tonight's proceedings, who gets interviewed and when. But we're going to stay with that one there. The top three pretty much are secure. So we go to Luke Rosella. He's out in front at the moment. And then you go back to Will Devenish in second place. He's 5.3 seconds in arrears. Brendan Ross has nearly 10 seconds down, but he's going to be pretty safe. The battle is just coming over the hill there, and they're all changing direction here. They've got to be careful. Oh. Very careful. Almost not enough racing room there left for Liccardo on the run to 6. They were all changing direction. Remember, you're only allowed that one proper change of direction, and you have got to leave space.
Yeah, they're all sort of getting to each other. They're all just running. I think all three of them sort of running with as little racing room as is strictly necessary for racing to function.
It's going to happen here. It's going to happen here.
Yeah.
Who's going to have the big brave balls and who's going to have the little mincy ones? It's Liccardo that tries to hang on, but he goes wide, and that's coughed up position there. Oh, and that's major. And that's a pretty bad rejoin, I think, there as well, because you're outside the track limits. Top three we said are safe. Rosella from Devenish and Ross will get third. Stenberg wins the battle of the Commodores for fourth over Liccardo and then Wedding. And there's, I think, a little bit of displeasure and stuff going on here as well. But they're going to have to just check their egos at the door, go back to the pits and reset.
Yeah, they've still got a third race to go tonight as well. And not that you want anything to boil over at any point, but yeah, you're right. They've got to back it down a bit. Still a third race to go tonight, and still a good run for a lot of these drivers as well.
Yeah. Speaking of good runs, Braxton Stancliffe home in seventh.
Braxton up to seventh. And in the end, Tim did get past Higginson as well for eighth and ninth, but still a top 10 for Nathan Higginson. Burke on the top 10 as well. Pretty good run for him. Zach, actually, we missed that entirely. Zach Brown finished at 11th.
He did finish 11th, and he started 18th, and he's managed to take advantage of the misfortunes of others. And the only DNF from this one was actually Steve Warwick. So he's there's some contact between the team cars as well. I'm not sure if that. I think it might have been Zach Ross not paying attention to what was going on.
I saw Zach and Tim and Braxton trying to do a bit of three wide, and I think Braxton's just checking off the brakes probably to go back to the menu, and Zach maybe didn't quite see it till the last second. So no harm, no foul.
No, that won't go down as any intentional contact or anything. This man, however, on screen, Rody, is at a dead set shocker, Brendan Foley.
Yeah, we saw what happened with him and Tim, and I think something else caught him at maybe the back end of the race. Maybe just he's talking about having sort of a car that as he's finding pace with it, he's losing the feel, the force feedback, which probably doesn't feel the most confidence of what the car's up to, and maybe just the back end of the race with the tyres starting to go, with concentration maybe falling off, he's just had a little loose somewhere. I don't know, we didn't catch anything on the broadcast, but a bit of a bad result. Also, actually, not a great result for Lockie Lock. Now, he started off the back of the grid in the race one, and he finished, I think, second last or third last, or started third last this race. But yeah, he just maybe hasn't been able to convert the same way he has previously, and he had good running last weekend, our last week out in the Dev Series. So I don't know, maybe maybe it's one of those things where just the availability to tune the setup is actually working against him in this case, and he's actually finding a car that's harder for him to get used to, as opposed to just running the default car with some small adjustments that are allowed in Dev Series. But I don't know. He's sort of a third race. Maybe we'll turn it around.
So yeah, there's a bit of soul searching I think to do in that one, and on course, Lockie Locker's had some dramas too with the recurrence of his wheel issues again for this particular one. And just getting some word through, looks like Steve Burko, even though he got the top 10 finish in that one, looks like he may have a lingering injury that's actually going to force him to sit this last one out. So that's a little bit of a shame. So he'll be down one car for the third and final race of the evening. But still, a good chunk of points for CRE Motorsport, with him finishing in the top 10 there as well. Now I can hear Rhodey furiously typing away at the keyboard there as well. So I imagine he's actually there trying to put some points together to try and work out who's actually
I should do
round
that.
overall. Yeah, well, off you go then.
Yeah, no, I was just messaging Lockie with my 2 cents on what might sort his pace issues out. But no, I'll have a look at the points table. I believe Rossi has been entering stuff previously. I'm not sure though with tonight, especially because he's been in some good scraps tonight, whether he's had a chance to update the points of yet. He has done race 1, so we've already got some idea of where the points table sit at. Currently, it's 173 points in favour of Kurt Stenberg at the top, but obviously we're still going to enter the race 2 data, so I will pull that up and I'll get back to him in a minute and we'll see what we've got.
Alrighty, so while we're doing that, we're just getting ourselves set again for another 5-minute turnaround, and then we're into race number 3. So it gives drivers a chance to get up, go and grab themselves a drink, calm themselves down before they get back out there again and see how things go. So I'm just keeping an eye on things here just to see where everybody's actually up to. Looks like we're just waiting to see, I think, Steve Warwick. I'm just waiting to see if he's actually going to re-enter. Looks like he's coming back in, so that will be some interesting. And I have seen the reporting chats obviously lit up with a couple of those issues in race number 2 there as well. So again, stewards will be having a look at some of that, and then we'll get back onto things. Well, I think, Rhodey, I'm just doing my mental math on the top of my head. With Rosella, I think P2 and P1, and then you've got Devonish P3, P2, and then Stenberg P1, P4. And then I think Ross was P3 and P5. I would say, and Licardone also in there P4 and P5 as it stands right now. I'd say there's only going to be about a 20-point spread between about 5 drivers, maybe 30 points.
What in terms of the guys out? In terms of a difference for tonight, or
just for tonight's overall honours.
Yeah, I'll just have a look at it now. Actually, for the top 2. 180 points so far tonight for Kurt Stenberg. It's 184 points so far for Will Devonish. So it's it's not a difference that'll win him a championship anytime soon, but he has technically got 4 more points tonight so far than Kurt. Just looking at it, Lucas Elo 5th and a 3rd. That's getting him a good haul of points. Rossi. Rossi's a 5th and a 3rd. He's still up there. Luke's got 186 points tonight. So yeah, the top 3 so separated far, and sort of the pace has been 6 points the difference between them so far tonight.
Yeah, not much in it at all. You're not wrong. So as I said, and I knew the top 3 were going to be pretty close, and then the guys outside the top 3, Liccardo and Ross, I'm sort of half expecting that they are going to be, maybe about another 10 or 15 points adrift of those guys, just with how the point structure actually is. But yeah, going to be very curious just to see how all that is going to pan out over the next few moments. Just having a little bit of a drama here, just waiting to try and set this grid, and then with a bit of luck, we should be back underway. I'm going to take a short break here again, ladies and gentlemen. I think maybe actually, how much time's left in the warm-up? I'm actually just having a look. It's only 3 minutes, so we'll have a bit of a chat here. Actually, a couple of shout-outs actually sort of want to do as well while we're having a good chinwag here, Roddy. I know there's a few of the Kiwis have made their way south to Pukekohe for this weekend as well, so a couple of them unable to make it for race night tonight, which is great to see. And I believe there's a couple of them are doing an endurance event over there in about a week's time. And so we wish those guys all the very best moving forward.
Yeah, I saw the post. I did see your post earlier in the comment section, Pete. I just didn't get a chance to mention it, but yeah, Pete Thrower and some of his mates, I believe, are running a Toyota Corolla, a 90s Toyota Corolla, in an equivalent of the Lemons endurance racing series or format next weekend. I forget which track they're at, but he's got a JPS style livery on the car. It actually, for $1,000 equivalent car, it actually looks quite good with the black and the gold on it. And he's obviously got Beyond Electrical on the car. He's got some other sponsors. I think Chopper's Garage, which we've seen, or something to do with Choppers, which we've seen on Pete's Supercars liveries before. And now they've done a really good job with that car. They've been working on it, I think, him and his mates over the past month or two, and should be a really good race for them next weekend, wherever they're at. But like Lemons' stuff, I think, like I've talked with probably half a dozen to a dozen members of the group at various points, and it's something that's interested a lot of people. When it's a good format, it's just, even for racing's still expensive, because the $1,000 doesn't cover like the $1,000 to $2,000 you spend on stuff like roll cage. You spend another $500 on all your personal driver gear and whatnot, but it's still a cheap entry level thing, and it's a really good casual form of racing as opposed to something a bit more serious, like even the state series stuff can get. So should be some really good fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how those guys actually get on. I haven't done a lot of that sort of stuff myself, but yeah, it'll be interesting just to see how all of that unfolds for them. Now, good luck to them. Actually, just having to set the grid a little bit manually here as well, which is a little bit of a disaster for us at the moment. There's been a couple of little, just a little hiccup with how the file's actually been put together, which just won't actually. We've got some couple of tools backside of the server here that we always like to use just to make life a bit easy for ourselves, but for some reason it actually doesn't want to play ball right now, so actually having to set that grid a little bit manually. Just going to actually restart the warm-up session for us, just to make things go a little bit more smoother, and we go from there. But no, the Kiwi guys have actually sort of turned out in some really good numbers over the course of the last sort of few years, and really bolstered the grid. And I know they have a really strong presence in the development series. A couple of them sort of running up the top end of the grid as well. Cheese doing fairly well, and even some of the young Kiwis that have been in the series for for not too long. The likes of Luke Yeager, he's probably been the quiet achiever, I think, of the Dev Series this year. Sits sixth in the standings and has hardly sort of made a whisper or a mention of anything going on at all. So he was actually offered a drive for the wildcards this weekend, but unfortunately doesn't look like he's been around to actually accept it. I think there's also been a couple of guys that have also had some dramas of their own with, I think, injury. I can't remember. There was somebody, I think, Rody, correct me if I'm wrong, someone actually broke their arm, I think, as well in the Dev Series recently, and actually couldn't partake. Actually, it might have been Cuppett or Hayden Cuppett, or one of those guys from the Starrett garage, I think, was one of the ones that unfortunately missed a round because they'd broken their arm.
I can't remember if it was one of those guys. I do know that it's not Dev Series, but I do know that Berkey was racing with a broken arm in the social series the round before last at Simmons Plains. He still, I think, picked up a couple of he still picked up podium finishes despite racing with only one arm. Few guys actually nursing injuries. I know Braxton Stancliffe, he was having a few issues. I think at one point he didn't help himself earlier, so that's what he did. Actually, sorry, I remember hearing earlier he punched a metal filing cabinet, I think, from memory, which was Which is an interesting choice. Apparently, he was able to punch a person, so he's probably better punching the filing cabinet, but didn't do himself any favors. And then a little bit of frustration early, punched the center of the wheel, and the center of the wheel is also quite solid. So he probably needs a punching bag or a pillow or something. But yeah, if you guys racing sort of a bit under the weather, as it were. Points and up to date. The important bit to look at from all this, compared to everything came into the night, is with his 5th and his 3rd, especially compared to Foley's 17th in the last race. Ross has gone past Foley, as has Luke Rosella in his charge back up through the field again.
Yes, that 17th place finish for Foley is actually pretty costly at the end of the day.
Yeah, so overall there is a 9-point difference. Sorry, not a 9-point. Sorry, 19-point difference between Ross, Roselle, and Foley at this point. Obviously, still the race to go.
Yeah, just the one to go, and another 100 points on offer on the table as the grid gets ready to go. Here we go. So all the grid is in. We are a car short in this one, as we said before. Steve Burko is going to sit this one out, and he's going to watch it from the sidelines. We're going to cheer on the rest of the CRE stable. Get on the couch, Steve, and just stretch that back out because we want you fit and healthy, and we want to see you out there again. And himself and Dane Liccardo are pairing up together for the Enduro Cup as well. So we need him fit and healthy for those longer distance events. Otherwise, it's going to be a bit of a difficult prospect to work out who's going to be starting the driving and all that sort of thing. And just waiting on a couple of the last few cars to get onto the grid. These races have gone pretty quick. They've only been 20 minutes apiece so far tonight. And it looks like we've got everybody on the grid. Yes, we do. 18 cars for this final race, Rody. Here we go.
Yeah, so starting from pole is Luke Rosella. He's had a pretty good run so far this evening. Obviously a 3rd in the first race, a win in the second one, and he's starting on a good position to try and win this one again. Starting alongside him is going to be his main challenger, though, in Will Devonish. Will's had the pace of Luke at points so far tonight, but when it comes to it, maybe Luke's had the edge, so we'll see how it goes for the 3rd race. Brendan Ross starting out of 3rd position. I missed words. Brendan Ross starting at 3rd position. His might actually be his first genuine podium that we haven't gifted to him outside of a stewards review this year, so he'll be pretty happy with that one, although it still came at the expense of another driver. Kurt Stenberg in 4th. He'll be charging pretty hard early. He's obviously got some points to make up to Will Devonish, irrespective of any later findings out of tonight's racing. Dane Liccardo in 5th. He's going to get himself back into focus again. He was having a good run in race 1, maybe didn't find himself quite where he wanted to race 2, maybe had a bit too much of an opportunity, so like his fight is with the Pixel guys and with Brenton Foley. Speaking of the Pixel guys, 6th is Lewis Wedding. 7th is Braxton Stancliffe. Good run for him in race 2, sort of staying out of a lot of the mess. Sort of trying to keep Lewis on us at points there as well. Tim Redmond recovered to 8th after contact with Foley. That was just confirmed with Foley that was, I think, some early car damage contributed to that one. With Nathan Higginson in 9th. Good run for him so far tonight. Zach Brown starting from 10th by virtue of Burko leaving. So definitely the highest start for Zach in the 3 races he's started or will have started in Supercars in his Supercars career. 11th is Termo with Bailey Hall in 12th. Daniel Cox back in 13th, not the race he wanted in race 2, so he's got a bit of work to do, with Cam Rutledge alongside him in 14th. Enzo Snipe starting out of 15th. Actually a good run for him in the 2nd race, capitalising on some mistakes of others. Brenton Foley starting out of 16th. He's got a big run due as well. Lockie Lock been struggling with steering feel amongst other things tonight, so that's what's putting him down the back. And Steve Warwick, a DNF in that 2nd race, starts from 18th. And obviously with Steve Burko out, we're down to 18 cars for the 3rd race.
Yeah, we are, and I think Lockie Lock actually had a coming together with Steve Warwick at some point in that race as well. So we get set for the final race of the evening. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. It's a fairly long hold, actually. This time, the outside groove doesn't get going. It's Luke Rosella who gets the jump. So 2 out of 3 for the outside row, and it was the first 2 races where they had the better traction and the better jump. Rosella converts from pole position. The first time that's happened tonight for any of the drivers starting on the pole. And the top 3, well, Ross has dropped back from the 3rd place position into P4 ahead of Liccardo. So the top 3 that have been the top 3 for the majority of the night are trying to get away here.
Yeah. Sorry. You.
And here comes Brent Foley. I was just about to say Foley, who started 16th, is now up to 10th. He's rounding up Daniel Cox on the far extreme outside of turn 5, and he gets the job done. Cox allowed him the space for it to happen. Foley has had a mega launch. Oh, and now we'll take, I was about to say, very nearly took advantage of, that was Braxton Stancliffe, who had a really awkward moment, nearly tripped over Nathan Higginson.
Yeah, I'm surprised nobody ended up spun out of that one, because I saw a couple of cars very, very sideways. Foley had an open door to make some passes, but saw better of it, and actually I think almost spun Braxton sort of in the kerfuffle. But no, Foley, one that had to recover. He's obviously putting the work in. He's already in the top 10. Daniel Cox just behind. He's sort of having to hold off Zach Brown, Snipes and Termo. But he's got a bit of a fight on to get back to the top 10 as well. And yeah, pretty electric start to this race. Yeah,
very electric start. The one who's gone backwards the most is Bailey Hall. He's gone back to plumb last at the moment. So I'm trying to keep a bit of a look at what's going on with him. He's lost 6 spots in all of this. He's fallen right to the tail of the field behind Steve Warwick. Looking to see where that sector is. It looks like it was, actually doesn't look like it's anywhere in particular, because it just looks like it's a bit all over the shop. If anywhere, it's in the middle sector. He maybe got mugged at some point between turn 4 and the exit of turn 8. He's got a little bit of work to do here, but he's got to slowly pick his way through this field, because it's not going to be easy. He's got Steve Warwick, Lockie Lock, Cam Rutledge, Termo and Zach Brown. They're drivers he's pretty familiar with running with, aside from Termo, who doesn't run in the development series, and then it gets a bit more arduous from there.
Yeah, I just went back and had a look for Bailey. Just sort of not a good start, and was just on the unpreferred line for the first couple of corners, and so got shuffled out wide, which is what sort of him back. But he's can start right at the back now. He can have a good little battle with Lockie Lock and make some moves from there.
I saw Bollards go flying as well in the back of shot. We were looking down from the gantry over Corporate Hill, and Hall and Lock and a bunch of others just sent all the cones flying. That delineates the, I think what do they call it, the extended circuit that's off to the right-hand side there. I keep forgetting the name of it.
I think it's the Brabham layout.
Brabham, thank you. Yeah, Brabham layout, you're right. Yeah, the cones that delineate where you peel off to the right to go down the Brabham layout just went absolutely everywhere.
Rossi.
Oh, they're all over the shop here as well.
There was side with Higginson, and he had the car 45-degree angle on the concrete curb out of the corner. Somebody didn't spin the car, and actually got a decent enough run that you're still able to hold off Braxton Stancliffe into the turn 1.
What's happened to Brendan Ross then? Actually, or have we called this wrong all along? Because I thought Ross was the car that lost out at third place to Kurt Stenberg. And look at this, now Foley wants to buy. He's going to get a 2-for-1 special.
Yes, that was really lucky for Rossi. Rossi just, I don't know whether it's driving or he's got a flat rear or something. It's just really, really pitchy, that car. But no, Rossi was 5th behind Dane at one point, but I don't know whether the car setup has just gone away from him or what's happened, but it's not the car that he had in the first 2 races, that's for sure. Whether, I don't know, he's been caught out somewhere as well, but yeah, he's got a bit of work to do at this point. He's currently fending off Coxie to stay in the top 10, which is the furthest we've seen him back all night. Yeah, so looking here, Ross must have had a really poor start just after the flag, because I actually thought I didn't have a second look at it, because I thought, well, Ross has started 3rd. He's only lost 1 spot, but by the end of lap 1, he was 7th. So it must have been Lewis Wedding with the ripper start that moved up the order. I didn't have a chance to have a second look at the numbers on the windshield just to see who had moved up the order. I should have paid. And the thing is, the timing tree doesn't come up as well until the first sector. Yeah, and to be fair, I've told Lewis this is why you make your cars easy to tell apart, that we don't confuse them. Yep. Or we've just seen around the background, that's I think Ben, Ben Bailey. No, it isn't, sorry, I saw red. That's Braxton Stancliffe actually around. Yeah, so he just went around all by himself in front of Brendan Ross. We're watching that one live. So that's a self-inflicted wound for him, not a flesh wound, a self-inflicted wound. And ahead of Brendan Ross, it's starting to get interesting. Liccardo has let Redmond go, and he's fallen back into 6th place. He's now, this is going to be an interesting battle.
Liccardo, Higginson, and Foley. What could possibly go wrong here, Rody?
I mean, between that, you've got like a group of drivers that seem to like having sideways cars.
Well, you've got the guy who pioneered sideways, the guy that wants to be the guy that wants to be sideways, and the guy that doesn't really like being sideways because he's fast.
Yeah, and you've got sort of guys that have a lot of race experience, but at the same time can definitely fall into the trap of having, I suppose, the youthful drive to try and have moves. I haven't seen so much from Foley traditionally, but we've seen some good starts from Foley this year where he's just like he's gone sort of bullseye in the rest of the lap or two. Like there's a point I think he was going for the lead at Sandown simply because he had a better start than those around him and wasn't content to sit on his hands and wait for the racing to fall out the way it should. So Foley's keen to get a bit of a wriggle on. Higginson, he's having a really good run, but Higginson being Higginson, he's going to try and make better from a good run. As we see, he's got a really good run on.
He's got a ripper launch here.
Liccardo here.
Oh, he's passed him before they even get to the control line. That's a mega run off the last turn for Higginson. Goes to 6th. Liccardo, don't. Oh, I was about to say don't.
That's not going to be moved.
That's not the opportunity to resend it. You weren't far close enough. It's turn 2 you need to be concerned about. And Higginson's doing the Liccardo trick that he's been doing for the first 2 races here. Parks it straight down the middle of the road, leaves the gap either side and says, well, where do you want to go? You want to go the left or the right, or do you just want to sit there? And Liccardo decided to sit there.
Yeah, and then Dane's just like he's having a good night tonight, but at the same time he's not afraid to get his elbows out as well. So this is going to be a little battle. What he's going to do is slow themselves down, or nearly a spun off of Foley's nose there, Dane.
Yep.
What's going to do is bring Rossi and Cox into this. Point fact with that. Rossi said at the start of tonight that his key mission was to avoid the front bumper of one green 00 Commodore because for those with memories that go back to Townsville, clearly not good memories for Pixel cars and the 00 there. He's going to be pretpretty close to that front bumper in another couple of laps the way these guys are battling, and I'm not sure he really wants to be there. I'm
wondering if Liccardo's pace is being hampered here slightly too, because we're on board with Brent Foley. You could see the brake lights were flashing on car 35 heading out of turn 5 up to
possible.
turn 6, and there's a bit of servo there, and I'd say that there's a sticking potentiometer on the brake pedal or something for that car. It's probably slowing it down a little bit. Now they're getting into each other, and this is now going to drag Cox and Ross into this 3-car battle. It's now about to become a 5-car train. Liccardo back to the lead of this group. Higginson tries to have a look at the inside here. No, not that thing. And you can see there just a little flash of the brakes, but that's normal because you can carry a little bit of braking into turn 1 if you like. But then you can just see at random times the brake lights are just flashing here. So I dare say there's probably another 10th or 2 in car 35. It's just a case of there's something else going on that's not allowing him to clear away.
Yeah, it's more of what I said earlier with, I think it was the first race with Lewis and Tim. It's like a championship battle, or like a world championship battle. At this point, it was over 6th, although Dane's managed to just clear away, probably helped a little bit by Foley. Gee whiz, Foley. Having a look at Higginson.
Got a stop here for Termo, wondering what's going on there, Rody. He's actually been in, and I would say that was held for a long time. I'd say it's a damage repair. Yeah, he's steering.
Yeah, the fact he's wiggling the car, I'm suggesting maybe knocked the steering off and enough that for him it just wasn't comfortably drivable. So, he's still got some points from finishing the race. At this point, his biggest concern is going a lap down. Actually, I've just realised we've lost Braxton Stancliffe recently as well.
Yeah, he's just gone just now, actually, I think. So that'll probably be an internet disconnect of some nature. I can't see anything on our screens at the moment about him having an accident.
I just had a look. He was just pulled off on the outside at turn 4 or 5 and just put the car back to the pit. So
possibly
I don't know,
maybe failure.
Or maybe a failure, maybe just something sort of real world at his end that you need to attend to.
Yeah, something's not quite right there. I mean, in New Zealand, they are 2 hours behind us, so it is midnight over there at the moment. But it is a Friday night after all, so I wouldn't be surprised that, there's some other little drama that's gone on over there at the moment. Keeping an eye on things, Bailey Hall has made a little bit of progress. He's now on the back of Cam Rutledge in the 015 CRE electrical machine. So through turn 2 they go. So he's benefited from Termo coming in for a stop, Braxton Stancliffe being out of this race, and then from passing Snipes on track, looking for another spot. So when he started P12, and he's got a little bit of work to do. He'll catch up to the back of Steve Warwick, I think, if he can clear Cam, and then he's got Lockie Lock and Zach Brown a couple more seconds up the road. This is getting interesting up here, Rhodey. Higginson's having to play a massive defensive game here. Liccardo's just starting to check out, and to the tune of maybe a tenth or two here or there. And the trademark Higginson sideways action now as well. And this is really starting to hold up Foley and Ross. Yeah,
Foley maybe, he probably has the pace to get past Higginson, but not sufficiently enough that he could just pass him. He's probably almost relying on a bit of a slider mistake from Higginson, which, to be fair, is what got Dane Liccardo free a lap or two ago at much the same point of the track. So Foley needs to make a move, because Rossi wouldn't be afraid of making a move on Foley, and that's going to slow them both down. And yeah, the laps are counting down, but if Foley or Rossi have the pace, they need to get past Higginson, because then they've still got time to try and have a move at Dane Liccardo, who's only 0.7 of a second up the road.
I was about to say there was a big amount of smoke and lock-up heading down towards turn 2, but I couldn't quite see who was actually the cause of it. It might have been Tim Redmond with a bit of a lock-up or running some tyres through the grass. So that's a bit of a mystery there. Up the front, though, the front's starting to get a little bit interesting. So Kurt Stenberg has finally found a way through on Will Devonish, probably just in the last lap. He goes up to P2. They're still 7.6 seconds behind Luke Rosell, and he's about to put Termo a lap down. In fact, he actually has put Termo a lap down now. So that's the first drive we've actually seen lapped all night long. No, that's not going to go to the Lionel Richie reference there. Thank you very much. It's fairly uncommon in these short, sharp affairs to see somebody go a lap down unless it's through a legitimate damage concern.
Yeah, it's either damage or it's like maybe some poor pace and picking up a drive-through for a jump start off at track limits. We saw this in Dev Series. I think I can't remember who it was in the end that picked up a. It was. Reese McGrillovay, I think, who picked up the, and I apologise, Reese, if you are watching, I'll butcher your name. It's a hard one to pronounce. Yeah, he picked up a drive-through for a jump start in the third race and still managed to come back and I think win or come second in class. So, yeah, like if you got the pace, you can cover from it. If not, then I can see you going a lap down from it. But yeah, that's now an extra bit of padding for Luke. Not that he really needed. He's actually gaining on Kurt and Will at this point, because Will's not quite done with this one yet.
No, not quite yet, but he's running out of laps. He's got 4 to go. This man has put some gremlins behind him. I'd like to keep my fingers and everything crossed up here in the commentary box right now, because he's running quite well. He's up to 5th place, benefited from a few other dramas, but up 5 spots from pretty much almost back row of the grid, basically. Poor first couple of races, Lucky Lock, and it's finally got a little bit of a groove going here, in a good rhythm. Lap times in the mid-31 bracket. He can see this battle. He can see this freight train that's just ahead of him, a couple of seconds up the road. Zach Brown's actually starting to close in on a little bit as well, with Higginson starting to hold everybody up. Now, has there been a pass? I think I just saw the timing screen just change there. Yeah,
it's getting close.
It's getting close. Yeah, so it happened for a brief moment. Foley managed to nudge ahead of Higginson, but now Higginson's taken it back. Now, I'm going to be keen to have a look at the lap times here. Higginson 31.6, and everybody else behind him is essentially going to have done something fairly similar. This is getting really feisty, and behind them, I'm just looking at the time. So 31.6 for Higginson, a 1.2 for Foley, a 1.3 for Ross, a 1.2 for Cox, a 1.6 for Zach Brown. I was kind of hoping Zach Brown was actually closing in on them a little bit, but he actually matched Higginson's lap time last time around. So he's in striking distance, though.
Well, here it goes. So we're talking about Rossi's going to make a move at some point. He is starting to now look at Foley, because somebody needs to get a pass on Higginson to really open the door for the rest of them. And
got to be careful.
That was messy.
That was almost a 2-car collision there, with Ross almost wiping out the nose of the Daniel Cox number 94 Commodore. A few drivers have come fairly close to wiping someone's nose. Look, they all lock up. Foley wide, Ross wide. The only one that stayed on the racing line was Cox, and he dragged the brake a little bit more to avoid running into the 444 machine.
Yeah, so what this is doing, it might be incrementally, you might be a bit into the back of it right at the end of the race, but Zach Brown is going to start closing up on them now with this sort of battling. What they've actually done is, it was not the intended approach, I can tell you this. They've given Higginson a free kick of about half a second now off the front of Foley. That said, he got a pretty poor run down the straight, and Foley's got a bit of slipstream, and I reckon Foley's going to be back on him soon. There's the question, the approach then for Rossi and Cox, even at this stage of the race, stop battling between yourselves, catch back up with the training, and hopefully you all get past Higginson, and then you can all battle for your spots past that.
Brown was quicker than the 4 cars ahead of him last time as well. And there we go. There's
that was beautiful.
Over and under. Oh, and Cox is around. No, away he goes. And there's a free kick for Zach Brown and for Lockie Lock. That was... I just saw it materialising, Rody. There was a beautiful over and under treatment. They were going to get each other back. Have a look at this on the replay again. We're just a little bit slow to pick this up initially. But Cox had the run, had the lunge. Rossi left in the space. And then have a look at this. Rossi just dragged the brake a bit longer. Thank you very much. I'll have the underside. And then, Cox just got greedy. Just got greedy on the loud pedal. That's all it took to undo that. He was in position there. He could have held the move around the outside of turn 2 and been in prime position for 3. So that's a shame.
Yeah, so unfortunate for Cox, he's actually put him out to the top 10 now, and he's that far back. His closest battle is actually with Steve Warwick, is another second behind him.
Yeah.
So that's a shame for Cox. Yeah, he was just getting just a little bit too greedy with the throttle, and it was just right at the point where those tyres were really screaming for a bit of help, right, or a bit of relief, and they got it by spinning.
Yeah,
so,
correct.
That's a shame for Cox. He's still a good run this race up until that point, though, when it had sort of freed up this battle a little bit. But that said, it's sort of taken the wind out of the battle a little bit. Like, Foley's still looking at Higginson, but nothing more immediate in the last couple of laps, really, because Higginson's making enough mistakes to open the door, but not enough to open the door enough for a car to get in. Yeah,
it's like playing peekaboo when you're like a kid and you just sort of open the door just a little bit and then you slam the door shut. Like, the door's not open for long enough for someone to stick their foot in there to stop it from being closed fully. But what it has done, that spin for Cox, is it's promoted the wildcard Zach Brown into the top 10. And I'll tell you what, he's going to be grinning from ear to ear like a Cheshire cat if that's where he stays, because he will have beaten Bailey Hall, who's been one of the classes of the field in the Super 2 development series so far this year. And he'll be looking at it going, you know what, I actually beat someone that's ahead of me in the title, or not ahead of me in the title race, but that's normally faster than me in the title race. But it might get another position or two yet, because I wouldn't put it past me that there's something interesting is going to happen in this group in the next lap in a little bit.
Like, either one of these guys is going to get the thing so sideways that the car just says, I'm done, or they're going to do that in front of one other car and take more of them out. Like Higginson, Foley must feel like he's racing himself at some points here, because Higginson's dropping the rear out of half the corners, Foley's dropping the rear out of the other half of the corners, and Rossi's trying to get in on the act as well, which is slowing them all down relative to each other just enough that nobody's actually getting anything done, really. They're
not. Well, we'll keep an eye on that one. We're on the last lap. Rosella's a good 12 seconds clear of the field here, so he's home and hosed and cruise it home from here. Here's the battle for second and third. Championship contenders continuing to duke it out, but Devenish doesn't look like he has an answer at the moment. But importantly, he's not going to lose a ton of ground as it stands right now. In fact, he was actually, would you say, Roddy? He was about 4 points up on Stenberg going into the night. And then when I have a look at how the point structure, I believe, and everything is put together, actually just wait and see if I can bring that up, because there is only a couple of points, the difference between the drivers at the end of the day. So in a sprint race format, second to third is actually 6 points, so it'll swing 2 points the other way. So it's not a bad night for Devenish, but of course he wanted to gain more points than this. So there you go, car number 1, home in P1, so 2 wins on the night. Stenberg's second, and then Devenish will be third, and then Wedding's going to have had a bit of a late surge here, because he's had to hold off Redmond, a hard charging Redmond. Is he going to get it by the line? Or is it just going to be enough for Pixel Sim Sports to get a 4th place finish here? No, he gets home for 4th.
Just having a look now, there's battle still on. It might just go Higginson's way in getting 7th, but the timing tree at one point, Foley was ahead again just by a nose, but it's not going to be quite enough. He's got to run, but again, finish line's coming way too soon for him. 7th for Higginson, 8th for Foley, 9th for Ross, and in the end, Zach Brown did fade a little bit, but still a top 10. Lockie Lock as well, up to 11th.
Well done to those two guys in Zach Brown and Lockie Lock. They've driven really smartly to capitalise on some of the mistakes of others in that one. They got a position free kick from the Daniel Cox spin. They got a position free kick from Braxton Stancliffe out of action, and probably from Turmo losing whatever time he lost in the pits out of that one as well. I'll tell you what, Rody, there's been some mega defensive efforts tonight. The Dane Liccardo one in race 1, the Higginson one in that race just now was another one. There's been a few drivers that have really, stepped it up. A few drivers that have definitely spent, I guess a lot of their time driving in their mirrors on that one, but knowing where to place the car and knowing what they can and can't get away with, and have somehow managed to hang on to their positions. I'm still trying to work out in my mind how some of those drivers pulled off some of those efforts. And we're going to have to think about long and hard now about who we bring up for a little bit of a chin wag after this one, because it's a sprint round, so we normally don't bring the top 3 from every race. We bring the round winner and then some people of our choosing. So just on the round math, it's going to be Luke Rosella will be your round winner with the most amount of points from Stenberg and Devonish, who, as my math stands, are only separated by about 2 points in that one. So we probably should leave them alone. But who are we going to bring up? Where do we start?
Yeah, because almost everybody's had a battle worth talking about at some point in the race, and we've caught it, and we've watched it, and we've inspected it, and we've pulled it apart and found entertainment from it. And there's not really been a person that had a night not worth talking to, because I mean, Braxton's had a DNF, and Braxton had some good racing in there. Steve's had a DNF. Steve Warwick's had a good run in that third race. Bailey's for the final flip, but Bailey had a good decent run as well at points. Turmo, but like everybody's had at least a good race somewhere in there, something to talk about. Either had a good pace at the start, or just got unlucky, or they've been struggling for pace all night, and then it's only come on at the back end, as you saw with Lockie Lock. And Zach Brown, he wasn't struggling with pace, he just wasn't quite in touch with a lot of stuff, and he's just sort of lucked out. But again, he was consistent, and he got the pace in that he got into a top 10. Outside of the obvious one, which is round winner, I'm not sure. I want to talk to everyone, but there just isn't the time.
No, you're right. There isn't the time in this one, so I think we're going to have to make a bit of a judgment call. I think we'll probably have to get the top 3 for the round, because they are all so close. Well, we know Rosella's trying to wrestle his way back into top 3 in the championship, and then we've got the 2 championship protagonists that are at the pointy end of the standings that are only separated by a couple of points after tonight now as well, for the way the standings are, so not going that way. And then I think we're going to have to get Higginson and Liccardo in just to talk about their defensive efforts.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, well, let's message them now, and we'll see how we go. Write them up. While you're doing that, I'm doing that, you can have a bit of a look at the point standings and get everything sort of sorted for that one. And we'll see if we can get these guys up here for a little bit of a chat. Definitely been a really sort of interesting trio of races. As I said, we've had some dominance out in front. We've had some great exchanges out in front. We've also had plenty of mega defensive efforts up and down the field, and we're going to slowly start to get all these guys in here now. And we call this the round review, because we're just having a chinway to everybody that we want to have a talk to about how their night went. It's not like we do with the longer distance races or the shorter distance twin sprint formats, where we get the drivers in after every race and have a chat. This is a little bit different. It's the last time we'll get a chance to do this this year, because this is the last of the triple header rounds. So we'll bring these guys in and we'll have a little bit of a chat. So while Roddy's doing all the point standings, we'll start here with our round winner in Luke Rosella. So Luke, we've by our math, you've got the round win by virtue of the 2 race wins and the third place finish in race number 1. But pretty close run thing between yourself, Kurt, and Will on points tonight. When you had clear air, though, you clearly had the quickest car out of everybody.
The car was really quick as soon as we rolled it out of the truck, to be honest. Didn't do a lot of prep, so yeah, didn't really know where we stood throughout the week, looking at it all the time. So yeah, just went out there and practiced and had a dip, and yeah, I think it was a pretty successful night, to be honest. Yeah, car was good. Had some pretty fun battles with Will and Kurt, and yeah, had fun. It was good.
Yeah, from our point of view, sitting up here in the com box as well, plenty of action up the front, especially in race one. I think that's where a lot of it sort of came to the fore, with all three of you sort of fighting really, really hard for the race win. Had some moments in the other couple of races. Getting tripped over with a couple of other drivers, locked in combat there with Dane for a little bit as well, having to fight your way back through. But as we've seen over the course of the last 2 years now, showing really why you earned the number one on the door last year, being able to pull off the passes when you needed to pull them off, and being able to pound out the laps when you needed to catch back up.
Yeah, it was really entertaining the first race. I bloody couldn't get past Kurt. He was sort of parking it in the right places, and I was being a bit audacious with some moves, outbraking myself, and he was cut back through. But yeah, that incident with Kurt, I mean, we all laughed. We were in the same Discord, so we all laughed about it. I didn't really care too much. I saw the replay, and he got loose off the grass because I sort of fed him on the exit and hit me. So yes, it was his fault, but it wasn't intentional. It wasn't silly. So yeah, it was all good after that. And then yeah, second race, I got a bit bullied, to be honest, in the first couple of laps. Yeah, had a silly incident with Dane in the second lap, and yeah, had to fight my way through the field, which was pretty fun. And I think it was good recovery in the end to get third.
Yeah, so absolutely. I agree. Yeah, probably a very good recovery drive, and we've seen that on a few occasions tonight. A few drivers have had to fight their way back through the field after a pretty ordinary opening stint or a pretty ordinary opening race, and then sort of pick their way back through the field. And it's not like the twin sprint races where you have a qualifying to sort of reset yourself, but fortunately for you, you weren't too far behind the top couple of guys and were able to recover those pretty quickly. The important thing for you is it moves you back into third place by our math in the championship standings as well, and you entered the night in fifth place and picked up enough points to move yourself back in. So, I mean, mathematically, you're still in the equation. Still going to take a fair bit of effort for the top two guys to let you back in, though.
Yeah, I think the chance for a championship win was probably over after the fourth round. So I'm just been racing racing the races as they come. Yeah, I guess having fun out there. Maybe with a bit of luck we might get through into there, but no, we'll see. We'll see what happens, but we'll just do the races as they come and have fun like I've been doing.
Absolutely. Well, great racing tonight, and really, really good performance. You walk away with the most amount of points, not by much, but good for your championship charge. And we'll see you in a handful of weeks for the Gold Coast.
Cheers, Nether.
All right, Rody, who have you decided you want to pick out of this batch? Do you want to have a chat to one of the guys that had played on a bit of a defensive effort, or do we just keep going down the order here?
I think we'll keep going down the order. So points-wise, the next better for the night, it was, I think, a difference of 2 points in the end. It was bugger all, but Kurt Stenberg, pretty good run for you so far. Not so far, pretty good run for you tonight. A win in the first race, obviously up on the podium for the second, and for the third race. Unfortunately, didn't quite go your way in the second race, but a pretty good run overall.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy. Expected this to be a pretty good track for me. Yeah, race one was really fun. I had a good battle there with Luke, and we were being pretty respectful to one another. I made an unfortunate error when he fed me and got loose on the grass. I just kept my foot in the throttle. I was trying to hold position and made a mistake, but outside of that, pretty solid night. Can't complain too much.
Yeah. So, it's important for you is it's what you needed in the points. With everything shaken out, you are still got 150 points plus ahead of Will Devonish. So from where you're sitting, basically for you, as long as you keep it on track about your sort of pace for the rest of the season, you're looking in pretty good stead. But with anything sort of playing into that tonight, or was it just getting out there and focusing on the racing itself?
Just focusing on the racing itself. I wanna win as many races as I can. That's what I'm here for. I'm not here to just drive around and try and get points. It's here for fun and here to try and win races and battle people. And like, yeah, could have given up some of the battles tonight, but it's fun to be involved in them. So get involved in those skirmishes, and that's what I tried to do. But yeah, we're going to have to think about it. I think coming to some of the rounds coming up, we are going to have to think about it, because we've got tracks where a DNF can be pretty easily happen if you get on the wrong side of a move. So we need to think about that. But here I was just having a real go and enjoying the racing.
Yeah, and I mean, talking about that, like you mentioned, perfect segue to the next track being Gold Coast. 200k race, you're right. Yeah, there's 300 points on offer there. If you DNF, that's a big fat zero. That completely flips the scales. What's your thoughts going into Gold Coast?
I mean, I like the track. We were pretty fast there last year in the Enduro Cup, but also I made a massive error last year and crashed into a tyre bundle and DNF just from the race. So that's playing on my mind. So I think we're going to have to play a bit of a cautious approach to that one. We cannot afford that to happen. So we just got to make sure that doesn't happen. So maybe a bit more of a cautious approach than tonight. But yeah, I still going to go out there and try and win. But we've got to think about the championship a tiny bit more.
Absolutely. Now, a good run for you tonight, Kurt, and we'll catch you in a few weeks' time for Gold Coast. Alrighty, going to move down now to Will. The difference in the end, as I said, was all of about 2 points across the round. And Will Devonish, pretty good run for you tonight, a string of podiums, but didn't quite get the win.
Yeah, it's a bit of return to form, so I'm pretty happy with that, especially at a track that I'm not a big fan of. So yeah, can't really complain with 3 podiums, and look, led a lot of race 2. So yeah, we had a car that could probably do it, but yeah, just a few little mistakes, and yeah, dropped back to second.
Yeah, I mean, talking about the car, I was talking to a few of the CRE drivers and a few drivers sort of benefiting from the CRE knowledge pool so far tonight. And I, from what I understand, it was a bit of a hard track to set a car up from without giving away the full book of secrets. What was it like trying to get the hard tyres to work around here?
Yeah, admittedly, we found something a few days ago, and it meant the car was good for the first 2/3 of the race, but then it fell off, and weirdly enough tonight, I made 3 different roll bar changes in each race, and they all like benefited. So race 1, we made a roll bar adjustment, tried to do the same in race 2 and made it worse. Tried a different one and that worked. And race 3, we tried what we did in race 2 and then it didn't work. We had to do something else. So it was just really weird that the car was acting completely different all 3 races, and I've heard that from all the boys. It's just a bit weird, but yeah, we got all the cars at home, so pretty happy with that.
Yeah, and actually, I suppose the last thing to touch on, pretty good healthy appearance. I think you had, by virtue of a couple of wildcard drivers or a wildcard driver, you had all of the CRE cars on the grid again tonight. So, pretty good run for the team overall.
Yeah, and being able to get some fresh blood coming through, giving Bailey his first run in the Supercars, I think it was a bit humbling for him, but yeah, it was good to have everyone in the chat, and pretty impressed with Dane tonight. He had some good performances, but we'll see what transpires next week.
Alrighty, good to talk to you, Will, and we'll catch you in a few weeks' time for Gold Coast.
Thank you.
Alrighty, nice little segue then on to Dane Liccardo. Dane, you've been talking to me a little bit. Let me get you so you can communicate with us. You've been talking to us. You're talking to me a little bit over the last little while that you just, amongst other things, you're just trying to look for some racing you can enjoy. For the broad spectrum tonight, do you think tonight fit the bill for you?
Race 1 definitely did. It was a good race with Rossi at the end, but race 2 and 3 were just disasters.
Well, if we break it down to the pure stat sheet of it, you picked up a 4th in race 1, a 5th in race 2, and a 6th in race 3. So pretty good haul of points overall, and I think that's still up there with your best results for the season. So some good things to take out of it. You walk us through in some detail your races, because you had a pretty good defensive game on at points there.
Yeah, it was pretty much a case of let's see how wide we can make this Commodore. It worked with some people, and some people it didn't. There was definitely some interesting things from myself and other people out there tonight. That yeah, I'm fairly certain I won't be keeping all of my points from tonight, but we'll see what happens.
Well, we'll talk about Gold Coast in a second, but the other thing you're supposed to think about is it's a good chance to get some practice on the hard tyres. Obviously, it's been delayed a bit, but Enduro Cup is coming up soon. Do you feel like that sort of helped your preparation running on the hard tyres tonight?
Yeah, well, it did a bit because throughout the entire Super 2 season last year, we got very little practice on the hard tyre. So it was good to have a few forced rounds so we can get used to it. And yeah.
All right, and then coming into Gold Coast, from memory, the one or two races you did with your former team last year, you had some pretty good pace at Gold Coast. So you're feeling a bit of confidence coming into the I say sprint round, but still a 200k race, the main Supercars round there.
Well, I don't want to get my hopes too high like I did tonight in case it does go all wrong. But hopefully we can get some good results there and bag a few more points and get that ever elusive podium.
Absolutely. Well, you came pretty close again tonight, and you've still got plenty of opportunities down the road, Dane. But good to talk to you tonight, mate, and we'll catch you in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And finally, we've got Nathan Higginson moonlighting as a championship contender in Dev Series usually, but also pretty good run tonight for yourself, Higo. Race 1 didn't quite go your way, but 2 top 10s in the end probably isn't a bad run.
No, it's not a bad run. It feels a bit weird being up here on a Supercars night. No, yeah, race one was good up until I fluffed it myself at the final corner. I just got a little bit too happy on the loud pedal and spun the wheels up. But races 2 and 3, I felt, I don't know, something just clicked, and I was able to drive the car a lot better in races 2 and 3. I don't know what happened. There was just something clicked in my head. But I have a feeling that I was speaking with Tim earlier and a couple of the other Kiwis, is that Supercars, I feel that, there's not as much pressure on me to perform, especially with, a championship on the line in Dev Series. I feel like I don't have to, that pressure isn't here in Supercars, so I can just drive for the fun of it. Which is probably why, it's a lot more measured in Supercars, because I'm able to just focus on the driving and not have to worry about anything else.
Well, speaking of the driving, and you're one of the drivers, the driver we talked to tonight who's qualified to talk about it, having spent time in it in races 2 and 3, what's life like in the Dane train?
Put it down to one word, it's quite congested. No, sitting in that train was some of the most fun I've had on a racetrack in quite a while. It was, that was a lot of fun. It was a good race with Dane, especially in the mid part of race 3. I'm not too sure what happened with regards to Dane on the last corner, where I was able to come past him before the control line. He had his brakes were engaged. I'm not sure what was going on there, but no, that whole race 3 is probably, one of the better races I've had in quite a while.
Alrighty. Well, good to talk to you tonight, Higo, and we'll catch you in a few weeks' time for Gold Coast, both for Supercars as well as Dev Series. And
no worries.
Yeah, good to talk to you, mate.
Cheers for the call, boys.
And that's been the round review for Sydney Motorsports Park.
It has indeed been the round review for Sydney Motorsport Park, including for Beyond Electrical in New Zealand and CRE Electrical here in New South Wales. It's been really great to have these guys on board for sponsors this year. I think we've had to call it the Electricians Supercars 2022 Championship, I think, because both Pete Thrower in New Zealand and Cam Rutledge, of course, is electricians. And you'll see that when we get to Pukekohe in a couple of weeks, it's festooned with the Beyond Electrical signage as the home round for Pete Thrower, and of course tonight there's the CRE ones for the home round for Cam Rutledge. And it's been a good night. It's been a really good night. The championship's still evenly poised. With a little over 150 points remaining, the deficit between the top two. And I like the way that a number of drivers have sort of taken a little bit of a backward step with their, with their aggressiveness their mind of thinking tonight, right? They're being a bit philosophical about it, Rhodey. They're already looking at it going, okay, I haven't got to worry about pressure, from Higginson. From Dane, yep, no, I had a good night, but I don't think I'll be keeping all my points. So he's pretty circumspect about it. Then you've got Kurt Stenberg, current points leader, saying, yep, after last year, what happened to me at the next round, I've got to be really careful. So, thinking about the long game, thinking about, their mistakes, and thinking about just finding ways that to get themselves in the right mindset for the remainder of the season. And Kurt called it perfectly. The next round at the Gold Coast is a 200k event. It's the same distance sort of event that we had for the two sprint races, of the two races in the Enduro Cup last year. They're about 68 laps each, and it's going to be a torture test. And you've got to be super, super careful at a street circuit like that, because the margin for error, it's not like the likes of Adelaide. It's not like the likes of the Townsville circuit or Albert Park, where you've got plenty of runoff. You can go down the escape roads and stuff. It's concrete jungle. You've not got a lot of wiggle room if you trip up.
Yeah, we threw that at the guys with that sort of thinking that it's going to be the championship. The championship on paper, at least, you look at it and you'd say, yeah, Kurt's already got one hand on the cup, but he's made a very good point, and it is true that a DNF or even a poor result for Kurt narrows that distance down quite well. It's only 160 odd points the gap, and with 300 points on offer for a win, even 60, 70 points lost, which is possible even with a finish. And all of a sudden, Will's going to be breathing down his neck a little bit. It's going to be a really, really challenging race for these guys. They've got the benefit of the soft tyre, at least for themselves, so they're not having to really battle the car too much. But at the same time, a 200k race around what is probably one of the narrowest, trickiest tracks on the calendar. It's going to be a really good scrap. Either that, and I wouldn't be surprised, it might become a bit processional, but we've got 3 weeks to sort that out.
We have indeed. Now, the only important comment I am going to raise about the Gold Coast round coming up in 3 weeks' time is, you just mentioned it then, it's the soft tyre. That might be the one saving grace for a number of these drivers, especially when you look at what happened last year with how attritional the race was. And of course, Kurt putting himself and Luke Rosella out of the running for the round win in that one because of what happened at the back chicane. The soft tyre's got more grip and it's a street circuit. So you take a look at that and go, okay, we're in with a bit of a different shot here. But you've got to worry about the deg as well. You've got to worry about that, and then you've got to think about the stops. So I'm looking at Kurt's thinking going, he's definitely got to give it some more thought, and it's a smart thing to do. So that's in 3 weeks, and that's the important thing. In 2 weeks' time, we've got the Dev Series going there, so they're going to be the guinea pigs for what the supercar guys look at and say, you know what? We need to think about that strategy because we're going to have one hell of a show. It's going to be about a 2-hour race when you think about it all up, or close enough to the 2-hour mark. So we will see. We will see what happens. But until then, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us for yet another Supercars Championship broadcast. And we'll see you in 3 weeks for the Gold Coast. Take care, everybody. Bye for now.